Hey, everybody. Welcome back to night 2 of Tellus Testimony. If you guys watched yesterday, yeah, it was like a very painful laugh riot to watch this man testify. Um, it did not go the way I thought it was going to go. Let's just put it that way. When you expect the defendant to testify on his own behalf in a murder case, uh, you expect it to be a little bit more riveting, but he managed to make such an exciting moment somehow boring to listen to at times, only because the man is so obsessed with himself and so narcissistic that he loved to hear his own voice. And what he chose to talk about at that moment with 12 people at basically, being held hostage to listen to this man, he chose to talk about himself and introduce who he was and his childhood and where he came from, and what a wonderful job he's done. Hi, Mrs. B. Thank you so much for becoming a new member. It was really fascinating. And because of that, even though it was boring, even during the boring parts, it was somehow still fascinating to watch because you're really watching this man's narcissism on display. So if you guys didn't check out the first night, I'm calling it night because we're covering it after it happens, but the first day of his testimony, he's testifying in the narrative is what it's called. Basically, he's getting up there and just chatting, just having a conversation with these folks. Robin, you're absolutely right. It is torture, and I'm here for it as well. I guess we're all gluttons for punishment, but he is just he's just it really is borderline just argument, because he's just kind of talking to these people. It's not testimony in the sense of, I was here on such and such a date, I wasn't there, the reason why I can tell you I was here and not there committing this murder is A, B, C, and D. Straightforward, making an appeal to these people, trying to save his own life, trying to convince them to spare him, trying to convince them that he wasn't involved in a, by the way, very brutal murder. We're not talking about, some sort of hands-off poisoning, shooting from a distance. We're talking about stabbing a man to death. I mean, when you just think about what it takes for a human being to stab another human being to death, it's really intimate and personal, and it's a really awful type of way to kill someone. And that is what you're trying to explain to these people you are not capable of. And this just did not appear to be the type of human being who I was expecting. CJ says it was like watching a stinky dumpster fire. It was, if you somehow were able to slow a dumpster fire down to half speed. That's how it felt to me. It was just, it was misery in slow motion. So we're back for more of it. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip past the parts which are just kind of nonsense, haggling over the admission of different documents and things like that. Get us to the actual testimony. So I've done some timestamps. Bear with me as I skip through some of this stuff. Before we begin, just a really quick hello to everybody who's here. Thank you so much for being back. How often do they allow this type of testimony? Not all that much. And it's not because defendants don't want to do it. It's because judges don't allow it, except for the rare circumstance where you're essentially, and thank you for bringing that up so I can explain to people who may have not watched yesterday's, but it's for people when they're essentially going to perjure themselves. They're taking an oath. He's taking an oath here to swear to tell the truth. And his attorney has an ethical obligation to not suborn perjury. And if he knows he's going to get up there and essentially lie, then this is a way for attorneys to take a step back and not violate their own ethics and just say, okay, you know what? He's going to testify and we're going to just hand him the keys to the car and let him have at it. And I'm not going to be involved in the whole thing. So because of that, otherwise you would have objections all over the place for narrative. You're not allowed to speak in a narrative during testimony. You're supposed to go through question and answer form. But in these rare instances, they allow for it for just this type of situation. Rough and Rougher asks, does recross examine himself? I believe he plans on giving a redirect, I think is what you're asking about. And I think, yeah, he's just going to say, hey, when I was asked that question, that was total nonsense, and here's why, and probably fill us a little bit more in on the probate code and how important that all is. We're going to jump into this in just a second. Couple quick things. One, we had many new members sign up yesterday. It was absolutely wonderful. I know that a lot of you got sent over from watching Jay and Bob's stream, so I want to thank them again over on Defense Diaries for doing that. And welcome to all the brand new members. It really is fantastic. Makes me feel wonderful, and also helps us to continue to grow this channel. That's my quick plug on that. We do have a membership program. If you guys don't know about it, please check it out. You click either join on our YouTube page online, or we're going to provide a link that you guys can just follow to join there. And to some of our new members, Lindsay Shea, the Sober Hipster, Gen X Chick, Eileen B, Shell, O Macklin, and Bucket Tree. You're all fantastic. You're all wonderful. Thank you so much for joining up. Did his lawyer not prepare for him for all this mumbo jumbo? You know what? One of the victims of Robert Tellis is his own attorney. Honestly, this poor man is just trying to do his job here. And I know a lot of people are throwing him under the bus, but I imagine that he had many, many conversations with Mr. Tellis about testifying, whether or not to testify. And this is, I'm sure, all over his strenuous advice otherwise that he's doing this. And it, you know, obviously so. The wheels have come off. The car is on fire, and the fire department has arrived to put it out with more gasoline. So it's just an absolute mess. All right, guys, should we jump right in? This is, so where we're at is he was not done with his quote unquote direct examination yesterday. He's now picking it up, which is in the morning today that we're watching it. And, you know, we're going back to the future here to watch this. So let's jump right in for some of the stuff he's going to, you know, see if he learned anything overnight.
Thank you, sir.
The defense is publishing to the jury Exhibit A.
I'd like to show the two, my jeans versus the killer's pants. I personally don't believe that they look the same.
That's sustained.
And I'd like to also note that none of my other pants, jeans, or anything else were taken from my home on the day of the search. As a result of my jeans being taken from me that day, I was put into that paper suit. And you've seen the photo of the paper suit. And the room was cold. I asked, well, when I attempted to have the temperature adjusted, there was no help there. So I spent the day freezing in that paper suit.
Victim once again.
There were various things that were done to, I believe, break me. I had conveyed concern all along about my family. And as time went on during this detention, interrogation, whatever, I learned of various things that I believe would tend to, and did for me, break someone's spirit. You know, I was informed that all of my vehicles were being taken away. And this was early in this interrogation. This was before they supposedly found a shoe, that they were taking all my vehicles away, which made no sense to me. When I wanted to reach out to talk to my family, to try to put them at ease, I was denied the ability to make any phone calls. When I wanted to speak to an attorney, I was denied the ability to talk to an attorney. It was my understanding that my rights were being suspended because I was not arrested, I was just being detained. Later, again, detectives took advantage, I believe, of my feelings for my family by referring to them over and over. And, you know, it was a lot. Then all had finished. They were finished with the search. And they took me back home. And the media was outside my house. And somebody followed me all the way to my garage door with a microphone in hand. I'd say chasing me per se, but she was walking pretty briskly all the way up to my house. And well, that was, I'm sure, her right. I wasn't, it didn't help the situation.
I got to pause this for one quick second. A lot of people have been asking, like, is how involved is his attorney in this whole thing? And you got to imagine that his attorney, thank you so much, Kathy W. Welcome aboard. You got to imagine that his attorney, one of the notes that he gave him was, hey, dude, pump the brakes on talking about yourself too much. Why don't we, rein it in, get back to the murder here. There is a dead man, and talk about how you weren't involved in that. And he chooses to begin the day today telling us about how he was cold and having a really, really awful day. And, the police were being entirely rude to the man, perhaps because they suspected you stabbed a man to death. But that's where he's going with this. And by the way, I said this before, it's not because, how do I put this? He thinks it's working. He's so caught up in his own narcissism that he actually thinks this is effective. I do believe. I don't think those dead eyes staring at the jurors right now are perceiving how unplugged they are from his nonsense. If you read the reports about people who were inside the courtroom, they said that initially the jurors were, in rapt attention, and they had their notebooks out and they were ready to listen to this. And within 30 minutes, and I'm surprised they lasted that long, they put their notebooks down and they're closing their books and they're looking around the courtroom like, what the hell is happening here? And this guy, my point is, doesn't realize that, can't read the room, can't understand his audience enough to know that he's losing him. And they probably don't want to hear about how he was uncomfortable and cold. And he's going back to it again today. I haven't seen one person say they think he's actually innocent. Yeah, well, you're gonna, other than him, and I don't even know if he believes it.
To know that the media had been tipped off and they were swarming around the house. Then I walked into the house, and what I saw hit me even harder. I'd like to share the photos of my house after Metro finished their search. I think it's A2 to maybe S2.
That's going to be A2 through I2. Yes, A2 through I2.
I'm going to try to I tried to cut out most of these awkward kind of silent moments here. And I don't think we're at one of those breaks just yet. So I'll let it continue to run because I think this is just a short pause. But, the other thing that's remarkable too is just the fact that he couldn't figure out how to do these exhibits a little bit better between yesterday and today, that he's still, you would think he'd just give everybody a heads up. These are the exhibits I want to use. What happens after the state rests? Tell us something about redirect. What is that about?
Do you want to publish?
I would, if you wouldn't mind, could you take maybe 10 seconds of photo and flip them for me?
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You want to see the photos? Take a chance.
Well, I guess maybe, but when we publish them, if you could publish them for about 10 seconds.
He's going to finish his quote unquote direct here. This is going to proceed like any other witness. He's going to finish his quote unquote direct. Then the state will cross him. And then when the state is done crossing him, he's going to, and that's what he's referring to as redirect. He's going to redirect himself, meaning he's going to just chat again. But he's supposed to be limited to what was brought up on cross. So that'll be interesting if the court keeps him on a short leash, when it comes to that.
What I'm concerned about publishing are the photos of the inside of my home and what. Okay.
Yes.
So, thank you, sir.
This is A2.
So this is what I walked into in my house starting.
This is A2, A1.
All right.
Okay, I know the similar looking photo.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you done with this photo?
Yes, sir.
All right. This is B2.
And coincidentally, I was led to believe that they were not going to make a mess of my house.
This is C2.
They were not going to make a mess of my house. See how they lied? See how they lied to me?
This is
Thank you,
D2.
Schultz Becky. Welcome aboard. If this doesn't explain to you a narcissist, he's more concerned about how they messed up his house and lied to him about it than he is concerned about the fact he's being accused of murder. If that doesn't crystallize the
F2.
whole mindset of this person to you.
This is G2. This is H2. This is I2.
Was that him whimpering?
And this is J2.
Is that him crying?
Sitting on the floor in our bedroom in the middle of this mess. And so this for me was, the thing that just broke me. I'm sorry. I knew I didn't do this thing, and yet the police claim to have this evidence. They did what they did to me, and I have $1 million life insurance policy. I didn't want my family to have to go through more torture, and so I don't know what I was thinking, but I thought, you know what, if I can avoid the pain that they're going to suffer during this whole circus, some money into their hands to make up for me not being there, then maybe this is the thing to do. But it was, for me, never. I'm not guilty. I didn't kill Mr. Gman. But as you can see, I attempted suicide. And SWAT came in and pulled me out and put me into that ambulance. Detective Jappy came into the ambulance, and when he came to the ambulance, he came in to extract a confession from me. It was conveyed that if I would just plead guilty, that.
Sustained.
And in response, I said that I'm innocent, but I didn't want my family to go through this, this thing that's going to happen. I guess what I said exactly was, I know that I would prove I'm innocent at trial, but I don't want my family to go through the pain. And I wish that I
Because he's
had the
such a
audio
good family man.
to prove that to you, but apparently it doesn't exist. I'm not certain how we ended up leading off with Mr. Gurman's, I guess the response to Mr. Gurman's request for the messages between me and Roberta, the emails and the Microsoft Teams. The production of those items that were given to, or that they were going to give to Mr. Gurman, it's a lot. I think it's probably hundreds of pages. So I think we were trying to see whether or not we could produce them electronically so that you could review those messages for yourself.
Nobody's looking at them, dude.
For murder.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to stop it here because we're going to skip forward a little bit. But I am, I think it speaks a lot when people choose to cry and when they also choose to fake cry and when they choose to put on a performance of crying. First of all, God, I hope if I were ever in a situation where I had to fake cry, I would do a better job than a lot of these jerks do when they seem to get on the stand. It's as sociopathic as they are. They cannot muster up enough human emotion to even squeeze out one tear. But he wanted the jury to know that what was most troubling and bothering to him was this disturbance to his family's life. But that isn't even really what bothered him. It was the attack on his reputation and ego by the fact that they messed up his house and that they were trying to coerce him into some sort of confession. It really has, none of it seems to be tracking with how you would expect a normal human being to react to being accused of murder. And there you go. I mean, a perfect freeze frame of what a non-normal human being looks like. He also had me convinced that he was part of this conspiracy, and I live in Iowa. Okay. Let's skip ahead then, and we're going to try to get rid of a lot of this nonsense. Let me see if I'm going to do this right. We'll do it right there. Perfect.
Okay, so this is a
Well
photo
done,
of my
Josh.
Yukon,
Perfect.
and that again was taken by the police at the garage. If you will note, my Yukon doesn't have worn paint around the windshield like the killer's does. I'd like to note that I am in jail. I don't have access to Photoshop this photo so that to remove any alleged paint, worn paint. I don't also have Photoshop to modify the picture that Mr. Mogg took that shows allegedly that there was worn paint on my car. I'll also note for you, just because the way that courts work and building records, that the doors on my car do lock and unlock. They do open. They do work. If someone were to open my car door, the visor, it works. It flips up. It flips down. So at any point, at any time, anyone could have opened the car door, flipped it up, flipped up my visor, flipped it down, even just prior to Mr. Mogg taking his photos. And so that's what I've got for that photo. Thank you very much.
This is argument. I don't know why the prosecution's letting him do it.
The cameras that are in the corner of my house, I did install those on September 5th, after my wife and I heard what we thought was a gunshot in the neighborhood. And I think that it'd be pretty easy to, well, I know that I said that to Detective Gaddis in my interview. And also, it was previously discussed that those cameras were not there during the surveillance on the 1st. So Mr. Mogg would not have found videos for the 2nd, for the 3rd, for the 4th. Personally, I believe.
Thanks, Bonnie.
When there's no videos for all those days, I'm not sure how it could be so.
This is Jane.
No problem.
Regarding your observations.
Of course, Your Honor.
That's the face of a guy who just wants to get down to his house in Cabo.
So
his timeshare in Cabo. Let me out of here.
Quotes. Well, I can't tell you what other people testified to, but I will say that that day on September 2nd at 8:50 a.m., I did make a text message from my house, and I did not leave my house. And I'm just going to hit this one point really quickly. Through 9:10 a.m. at the very earliest. Okay. As I testify later, it was much later that I left my home, but that's, I believe, an important point. So 8:50 sent text message, 9:10 I was still home. Now, I would like to share, if I may, R2, I believe, I'm not sure if that's been admitted by stipulation or not. These are the tweets that I made that had any reference to Mr. Gman.
She's just thinking, I got to get out of government work.
The state had produced a Twitter file that was not in your typical web browser format, and so when we went to review this is how those tweets came up.
Any objection?
No objection.
It's admitted and you may publish.
Here, let's. So you'll notice that you heard about that tweet where I talked about where I joked about hearing rustling in the trash, just a dig at Mr. Gman, and that was the one that's listed on 6, I believe that's 6:18 at about 7 at almost 8 in the morning. You don't see the other tweets because for whatever reason when they produced this document, they didn't produce replies embedded in it. So, but that's the same one. And you see that my last tweet regarding Mr. Gman is on 6:19. And there I say, at @JGermanRJ, at Review Journal. Actually, it wasn't lashing out so much as making sure that you finish the story about the website and maybe poking a little fun. A winky face emoji. You know, I had created, and you'll see that as has already been admitted, I created this portion of my campaign website that talked about the stuff that you know, that was different things I disputed. And so I wanted to draw attention to that. So that's why I go to Mr. Gman into that a little bit. At the same time, it's actually June 16th, I sent a text message to a friend who had reached out to me about, because he was, you know, he just wanted to check in on me. And on the 16th, I conveyed to him that it's all good. I'm not actually mad at it. At this point, I was over it. You know, I'm happy to move on. You know, and you know, so although, you know, Gman says he's going to do a third article, one about the website. I don't give a damn. LOL. I don't know. That's something that we can, thank you, sir, that we can admit this text message.
CJ, does the state have to agree to this nonsense? Unfortunately, yes. I mean, it doesn't have to agree to allow it to go completely off the rails to the point that he's just giving an argument, and they've been objecting where I think it's appropriate. But their hands are tied to some extent because he has a constitutional right to testify, and this is one of the mechanisms that is allowed for in this type of situation where the attorney believes perjury is going to take place. That's my suspicion. It's never been said in court, but that he's going to go ahead and tell his story, and his attorney's just going to get out of the way. But one of the things that makes me think about as we're watching this, and he's continuing to have these trouble with these exhibits, and the exhibits are all bizarre and not well put together. Somebody asked a question, do you think his attorney even played a role in this as far as like helping him prepare? And I'm beginning to think absolutely not. I mean, none of this is prepared. You would think if he knew that I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to get into the tweets, I'm going to get into the text messages, I'm going to get into these photos. His attorney, at the very least, would just have this stuff prepared and ready to go in a format that would be helpful to him. But he seems like he's learning all of this for the first time himself. God bless that poor man. He's doing the Lord's work, and this cannot be comfortable for him. Jay, you are wonderful to be back here again. He did not get to his lifts yet. I have not watched this thing, but I do know that that was covered at some point, and I am here for it.
If we may, or if you could present it for admission.
This is anything that he wishes.
The offer.
Possibly make this a proposal to it.
Yes. This is going to be J3.
Thank you. Absolutely. No objection.
There being no objection, it's admitted and being published.
So you can see the content of there again. 3 days before I sent that last tweet. So again, there were never any messages where I would threaten Mr. Gman. You know, I'm certain that if there were, they would have been produced. Thank you, sir. The way that I handle things is I figure out ways to do things legally, and I'll discuss that in a little bit as to what I was planning. Your Honor, may I just stand up for one moment to show the jury why I didn't wear name brand shoes at the office, just for a moment, and
You just want to stand up?
right where I'm at.
Yes.
Okay. So, I don't know if you noticed the height difference. I wear lifts in my shoes. I'm about 6'5.5", and I call it a vanity thing, right? I just wanted to feel a little taller. And so
Not
I
shocked
may
at
just
all, dude.
Demonstrate why this is important. So these shoes that have built-in lifts, they're designed in a certain way where they don't slip off a person's foot when you're wearing them, right? You can see how this is so elongated because there's a lift in here, right? So you can't put, it's not, you know, from what I've tried, I could not put a lift in a name brand shoe because that shoe would slip right off. There's not enough of the back of this, once that lift's in there, in order to grab a hold of your foot. So essentially, I'd be kicking my shoes off every time I walk. So, I never wore, again, any type of name brand shoe at the office. And I think that's something that will likely be discussed at closing, and how that's relevant.
You're welcome, everyone. If you tuned in yesterday, you got a treatise on probate law, and I know what you were all hoping for was to get a little more insight into lifts and shoes, and so there you have it. Mystery solved, case closed. Again. This guy feels like he is knocking it out of the park with this stuff. Just me being cruel. It keeps on cracking me up how he says, so when you see this exhibit, go back and take a look at this, or this will be explained to you further in closing. I want one juror to yell out, we're not going to look at it, dude. We are not reviewing this stuff. Please wrap it up so that we can get to signing some documents here. I think it just is more of an insight into his ego of how he feels that they really are hanging on his every word here.
Which, of course,
thank you. I love justice. I love justice
in the house.
too.
I did not cut up a shoe and hide it under my couch. I did not cut up a hat and put it in an open door of my toolbox. I did not kill Mr. Gman, so I did not take a bag with my children's basketball and football out of the bin and use it during the commission of a murder.
So unconvincing.
Again, I didn't kill Mr. Gman. I guess my next statement would have been argument, so let me skip that. And I think my attorney has already kind of discussed with you the deletion of this body cam video.
I don't blame the jurors. I couldn't look at them either.
I guess next I just want to share, I'm going to try to share some thoughts with you about the killer.
You do that.
It was strange to me.
Where did he go to high school?
I didn't get to hear, so, what did you, what's the topic?
Well, I wanted to talk about my observations about the killer.
Okay, you can testify about any facts and observations that you've made.
Observations that I made about the evidence that I reviewed, Your Honor?
Sure, go ahead.
It was strange to me that the killer walked around the neighborhood.
Facts and observations that you have made.
Right, and I was clarifying earlier that if I reviewed the evidence as provided to the state, but that's okay.
Thank you.
I'll move on.
I'm just playing ball here. God.
So I did not. Make sure I get my order right here. So you saw a document with certain searches that said Jeff Gman, Las Vegas, Jeff Gman, Las Vegas, Rob 4NB, those type of things. I'd like, and my apologies, I should have actually sought this out earlier. I don't know if we can, it's a state's exhibit, if we can dig that up.
What is it?
It was a list of searches for Mr. Gman that was provided by the state, a lump of Cellbrite items.
All right. It's on instructions. Yeah, it would be instructions.
I don't know what's going on with the sound. I hope it's just a pause in the proceedings. The fact that they're not showing him makes me think that it is a pause in the proceedings. But I think we have another few. Here
Search
we
results
go.
actually get pushed, or like pages get pushed up, is when people review or when people do a search and they visit a particular page based on the fact that they did these search terms. That would actually increase the ranking of the page. And so I'll explain. So for example, again, if you Google Rob Tejas or Jeffrey Gurman, Las Vegas, Rob4NV, then you go to my page and you find the page and you click it, then Google's going to say, okay, we're gonna push this up, right? When people search, we're gonna get it further up the chain. And so when I was doing these searches, you'll see, sir, is it?
I mean, approach.
Is he honestly trying to tell us how Google works?
Thank you, sir. And sir, may I ask you to kind of go through this slowly on the Elmo, if you don't mind? If you don't mind, please.
Make publish.
If I was trying to search for Mr. Gorman's personal information, I don't believe that I would repeatedly Google him over and over again. If you might focus, I don't know if you all can, if you might zoom in just a little bit more, if you don't mind, sir. So you see that it starts off Jeff Gurman, Las Vegas, 4 times. Then I added Jeff Gurman, Las Vegas Public Administrator. And if you could flip that page, please, sir. And then from there, if you could go down just a little bit, if you don't mind, just so I can read the very top. Okay, Jeff Gurman, Las Vegas Public Administrator again. I did that a few times. And then if you could, and again, so if I was trying to find his address, I would be putting Public Administrator in the same search, right? If you could please flip that as well. So here I was trying to build a pattern. So next I searched Jeff Gurman, Las Vegas, Rob4NV, which is my campaign website. And so later as I continued to research, I found out that the only thing it was going to do is bump the search result up on my own browser. But thank you, sir. So I ended up finding that there were paid services where you give them a credit card number and a certain amount of money to spend, and they have either one of 2 ways of doing it. They either have people in some other part of the country or the world manually typing in these search terms, from different spots to, and I guess it's, I don't know if you call it cheating to have somebody artificially pushing your website up, but I felt like, with what Rita Reed had done, that, if she was going to lie, that it was fair game for me to try to push my website up so that people could read the truth.
The way that he's talking about this, like, I know I was a little bit naughty. I know it was a little bit naughty for me to try to manipulate the searches. Go ahead, lock me up. I did a bad thing. And it boggles my mind too. Is he drawing attention to the fact that he was obsessed over this man and using that somehow as evidence that he didn't have a motive to kill this person? I'm a little bit lost here, which I forgive myself for knowing who we're dealing with, but it cracks me up, the just absolute sociopathic mindset that continues to shine through with this guy, that he has to apologize. Yeah, maybe I was cheating a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Naughty me. When we're talking about a dead man. And he's not an unintelligent person. He's not a, what you would say is like that's a really stupid person. He's so blinded by his own ego that he doesn't realize how unconvincing some of this is, and that it's probably not scoring him any points at all with the jurors to get into these web searches.
Right. So that was the purpose of those searches. But I never searched for Mr. Gurman's address. And I would think that if I had, you would see a landing page of some sort that actually showed it. I searched for his address. So when I saw the supposed searches where I supposedly looked for his car, you got to have a man's address when you're putting it into, at least from what they showed, that supposedly they found the car by way of his address. I didn't know his address. So, and again, and I think if you would have seen some landing page showing that I knew it, I didn't know his address. Never been to his house. Didn't do a Google Maps search of him. And when it came to these photos that are supposedly surveillance, I don't know why anyone would do that. sit there and take 100 photos of different cars. I don't even understand what the purpose of that is. It's my understanding that surveillance means you go tail a person, not sit there and snap off a bunch of pictures. And then there were these other items that the state had introduced, photos of articles, like screenshots of articles, screenshots of the
Look at the dude in the
Facebook
blue
messages of the
jacket.
discussion that I had with John Cahill. And
Just
those are
mouth
items that I was
agape
actually collecting
listening to
for a
this.
lawsuit. And did you all bring a copy of that lawsuit? The lawsuit draft? Rick, may I? So I had been writing a draft of a lawsuit, and as I said earlier, this is the way that I wanted to handle this issue. If we may take a look at it so I can tell you.
He is like a character from Larry David. That's so fantastic. This drives me nuts how they keep on cutting out the audio. I'm not touching it.
I couldn't sue my employees because that would just look bad. But I felt that after I lost the election, they were fair game. Because my original thought was that, if I won, or if I tried to sue them in advance of the election, that people would say, he's just trying to shut up people, right? And I got advice to that extent. And so I took it. I said, okay, well, I'm from an attorney. I'm like, all right, well, I won't sue them now. And my hope is that I was going to win. And I think I came pretty close, but it is what it is. So once I lost, I said, you know what? Fair game. I'm going to sue them. May I? Oh, I am so sorry, sir. Okay. And so again, this is a draft of a lawsuit. It's an unfinished lawsuit that I had started drafting, and it was going to be on behalf of myself as my own attorney, as part of the law firm that I had, Accolade Law. And I would like to ask that this be admitted.
Any objection?
So you can review that and see that, again, this is the reason that I had actually captured some of those pictures. Sorry, sir. Okay. Now, the interesting about this situation, and I guess I had done my own research on cases, and I had found that there were actually cases where even DNA evidence had been planted.
They got to
There was a
object to
case
this.
where
Come on.
apparently it was an officer-involved shooting, and the police were pretty sure they had their people.
Objection, relevance?
Yeah, the objection is sustained.
It goes to my theory, but I guess we'll have to say that for later.
Did he hire two attorneys with full heads of hair and beards to kind of offset what he's working with? Is that's kind of my working theory behind
That day,
lawyer choice.
September 2nd, 2022, as I mentioned earlier, I sent a text message, hung around home. I know watching TV or working. Somewhere probably around 10-ish, I went for a walk. Came back home, and then got ready and went off to the gym. And if I could republish T2.
This has already been admitted.
Somebody asked the question, why do they keep on getting the documents from the prosecution? The prosecution is likely admitted the vast majority of all this evidence, and he's just using their exhibits. You don't just, use your own exhibits that are duplicates of what the people have already introduced. Yeah. Special K. That's why.
As I said before, I'm techie, right? You see that my actual login, after you consider everything I do, to get ready to go to the gym, when they were ready to scan my phone, it was at 12:09. And I say it was my phone because I'm a techie person. The tag that was on my keychain, I abandoned it long ago. So that was from my phone. May I next republish, I believe it's States Exhibit 374 regarding text messages I received that day.
I feel like he's kind of living out a fantasy of his to have, be a trial attorney as well.
Would you, if you don't mind, if you could publish it, please.
What would you publish?
About 20 pages.
If you don't mind, we can just go through it briefly. My apologies. If we could go ahead and turn to the next page, please.
It's 374.
Okay, so if you could turn the page, please. Okay, if you could turn the page, please. You turn the page, please. If you could again turn the page, please.
Oh God.
Now you see again that conversation I had with my daughter. Had my phone, responded, no problem. At 9 o'clock, still had my phone when I got an email from Jimmy John's. You could turn the page, please.
See, this is what's incredible about this too, is that this isn't really like all of this evidence is in. His attorney could argue this in closing arguments. His attorney could get up and go, look at the timestamp on this text message shows that he was home, but he's doing it's partially argument, partially testimony, which makes me think this is why this man wanted to represent himself anyways. He's got this idea of how he wants the argument to take place. He doesn't trust anyone else because he thinks of himself being the smartest man on earth. And again, he's not doing anything for himself here that his attorney couldn't do a better job of in closing arguments. This isn't really testimony. It's just him making points and arguing to the jurors. And now he's pigeonholed his attorney that he can't really argue anything else in closing because he's already made the argument.
Still had my phone when I got this message from, if you bring it down a little bit, or the other direction, please, from Cora. And when I got this text message from the spam, talking about how they wanted to sell my home, I didn't respond to that. If you could please, when I got the message from Macy's, I didn't respond to that. And again, still had my phone. When I got this, if you could go to the next page, please. This is, so we had recently changed at the office, the way that our vendor for the answering service. And with that, I asked that they create a system or implement a system where we're automatically texted for these things. Again, no response required. This is something that was assigned to Rita. It was just provided to me for my records. So nothing to respond to. Again, another email, no response needed. Just junk mail. Sir, please.
It's like they're showing these exhibits.
Again, another
I don't know why.
Message from the answering service. Then at 10:36, I got a message from my wife with a picture of my daughter. And then if you can go up, my wife called about 10:43. I've been out for a walk. I was just about to come in anyway, so I didn't respond. You'll notice that she did not call me again. She did not text me again. That's because I am home. So can we go to the next page? Again, another junk mail. Then a phone call from Reputation Defender. Junk. I don't feel the need to pick up the phone from everybody who's calling. And then another email, again, automated email. If you could turn the page, please. And calendar invitation, junk mail, calendar invitation. And you'll notice by this time it's already 12:53 when we're at number 32. So I already have myself at the gym, right? So it's not like I've got to answer any of these things, right? And then I was done at the gym. I want to say I typically take about an hour there, and so it was. I don't know why I would have missed this call if I was in the shower or whatever. This would have been from the vendor for my daughter's diabetes supplies. So they left a message, and if you scroll down, it looks like they left a message about a sensor for my daughter. And if you could go up. So here again, like I said, you should have no doubts about the fact that I had my phone on me. Whatever anybody tries to argue, because again, I clearly had it. Went from the check-in. I say I had it all day. They may try to argue otherwise, but so when we continue on again, there's that message. Then my ex-wife sends me a message at 1:26, and I don't immediately respond to it. And I don't feel the need to respond to every single text message immediately. I don't know, I'm personally that way. If I don't find a sense of urgency in it, I believe it can wait a bit. Sometimes I won't respond to, even if it's a person who's sending me a text message, I won't respond to the next day. It's just whatever mood I'm in. So I personally don't think that there's anything suspicious about my phone use here. Thank you, sir, very much. So I went to the gym, like I said, at about 12 and got checked in about 12:09. Did my workout, went home, picked up kids later. And, I can't imagine the kind of person that would.
Sustained.
So I personally can't imagine myself to be the kind of person.
Sustained.
I am not the kind of person who would stab someone.
The objection was sustained.
Okay. So I've never beat anybody up. I've never killed anybody. I didn't kill Mr. Gman. And that's my testimony.
Wow. Wow. I mean, just bringing the hot heat right at the end there. I mean, that, the most important statement he's probably going to make in that entire testimony, closing argument, whatever you want to call it, is to deny the fact that he was involved in this man's murder. And it seemed like this sheepish apology that he, he's asking someone if they could I please just scooch by you here so I can get past you while you're sitting there in your chair. I mean, it was just so weak and feeble and without any conviction whatsoever. He was more heated up and more emphatic about the mess that they caused in his home, or whether or not his car has the same type of rims on all four wheels, than he was about that statement right there. It was absolutely fascinating. That's how he decided to end his testimony. By the way, same guy, he brought it up himself. He's been thinking about this for years, this moment. I think he said for 2 years he's been thinking about this moment. And that is the way he decided to end it. That is the way, after all of this buildup and a full day worth of testimony now, and the way he decides to end it was with that weak, pathetic, spineless, just excuse for trying to say that he wasn't involved. I'm no body language expert, but I can tell when someone is just not believing even the words that come out of their own mouth. Okay. So, I know the DV, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the allegations were on the DV incident, Afton. I don't know if that ever came out. I'm going to try to get us through, because we still got now the cross-examination, which I know you all were looking forward to. So I'm going to try, we have to skip ahead quite a bit here because they took lunch and there was also some other shenanigans just getting everything started. So I'm going to try to get us to, I think this gets us to some argument about the admission of different exhibits that he was taking issue with. Let me see. Right about there. Yeah, Kathy, train wreck is right. So he's back in court. This is after lunch now, I believe. And the prosecution's about to cross, and there's some issue, I think.
The hearing's taking place outside. Is there an issue?
That's what I just said.
Yes, there's a question as to what doors perhaps are open in reference to communications between Mr. Tellis and Roberta. There's been a production made. We've had certain communications produced. We need to go through those. I think there's going to be a dispute as to what the scope, what's to be turned over, what's not. If there's been a privilege that's been previously asserted or not, if there's been any waiver. I think that's something we're not going to get done until after lunch. We're going through them.
Can we start and then that issue can,
I would prefer to know we can just lay it out pretty easily. Mr. Tellis got up here and wanted all of the team's messages admitted into evidence. So that would be our request. There has been a production that we have, that the defense has, of team's messages. We provided those messages. Sounds like the defense's concern is maybe there's another production of team's messages because, I mean, the long and the short of it is some of the team's messages contains information that I think Mr. Tellis finds fairly damaging. And so he wanted them in. We agreed, fine, let's let them in. And now there's an issue of, well, I don't necessarily, I don't know that those are all of the messages. So what we're trying to nail down is the information. I mean, they have these have been produced, like I can see in our files, these have been produced. I don't exactly know what he is looking at. I know the nature of the emails, the nature of the team's messages that are the source of consternation for Mr. Tellis has nothing to do with an attorney-client privilege. It has nothing to do with, something that would be privileged to the public administration's office. It just deals with something else. So
what's the privilege?
Again, too, it could go into bad. Well, we need to see what the privilege was previously asserted or not. It's the state's argument, and I understand their argument. They're saying that Mr. Tellis, by his request, opened the door. As we addressed yesterday, Mr. Tellis is testifying in a narrative sense. We put the court on notice. The court allowed that to
Thank
occur.
you, Jody.
My concern
nice
is we would
of
like
you.
to pull up on the jabs or otherwise what specific requests he had made. There may have been a misunderstanding on the part of the state what it was that he was asking to have admitted. We want the break to go through that because it's the scope of what his request was. Obviously, it wasn't in response to a question or request that I had made. It was actually made by Mr. Titus. But again, I'd like to see that on the video, which we'll be able to address over the lunch break, because I think it's concerning a scope of the production.
Well, what do you think it was, Mr. Draskowitz? I mean, because it appeared to me as though, just a minute, it appeared to me as though he was requesting, the witness that came and testified and talked about that production that was about to happen, I don't know, at the first part of September. I mean, that appeared to be what he was asking the state to put on a disc and produce.
Yeah. So what I was requesting to be produced was actually what was produced to me
Okay.
in support of what was going to be produced to Mr. Gman. And so any and all, messages of any personal nature in the review of the documents that I saw, and anything personal, like, talk about perhaps going to the mall or whatever, that was already removed by the time I viewed it. So when Mr. Hammer's coming here with these messages, that was pre-trimmed. So I believe he's going to say that, look, this is why Mr. Tejas decided he was going to be angry, but that's not true, because the version that I saw had already trimmed out all these personal messages. So it's misleading the jury about what reverse is
What's
to.
being trimmed out? You
So
mean by the
basically,
county?
yeah, Clark County has a policy where they run it through various personnel, because their policy is to only produce business records,
Okay.
no matter what. There's, they do not allow for the production in public
This is
record requests
bonkers.
for messages of anything of a personal nature. And so, again, I believe it's in bad faith that Mr. Hammer is trying to show the original production and not what I personally saw. Because what I saw had nothing that referenced the mall or anything like that. And, and if Ms. Lee Kennett had any such concern, she would have said the same thing. She would have said, well, yeah, I had a concern with this. But clearly, she saw the same messages I did. We saw no concern because personal messages had already been stripped out. And now we're at the point where Mr. Hammer is trying to mislead the jury about what I saw.
And obviously, this predates this gentleman's being charged. This predates. We're not talking about productions, of course, of discovery in a criminal case. And this obviously predated this case. So we're talking about back when Mr. Tellis was at the public administrator's office, what he was given, what he saw, and I think that goes to the very point. It's referring to what his knowledge was back in that time, and that's why we want to address the scope of what it is the state intends to produce.
Mr. Hammer?
our position is we have these two messages. It's not about taking a walk. We'll call it out for what it is. I mean, it is, they are romantic messages between those two. Okay. I mean, that's the reality of it. That's what's in the team's messages. I have team's messages here that contain that. They may be right. Maybe there is another version of this, but the Teams message that we have, that we've produced to them, contain this information. Mr. Tellis got on the stand, and when he told his jury, he's like, oh, I looked at those Teams messages, and like, I didn't have any issues with it. I'd like them all admitted. He did not put them together on a USB drive or anything, right? They did not come here and here they are. They didn't produce them to us for us to review to see if there was any sort of discrepancy. I said, we have the Teams messages, we can add them, and now they're reviewing, and that's fine. Like, if we want to get clarity on this, but clearly it changes the tenor of everything, right? And listen, if he looks at the jury and says, oh, I was totally fine with those messages, and let's say they missed them. What if they read them and they missed a couple of instances where they were telling each other how they felt about each other? You know what I mean? Like, then that's a misstep on his part. Now, listen, if it wasn't produced and there's some county law that's out there that doesn't allow that, but if we think about what the FOIA request, which we actually have here for Mr. Gman, which has been admitted, which was, we want all Teams messages to tell us, and all of his articles when raising her has to do with the inappropriate affair. It seems to me that absent, some attorney-client for some applicable privilege, it is beyond me how that would somehow be pulled out.
And again,
Didn't the request ask for communication?
All
between those two?
communications. He wanted personal text messages. He wanted Teams messages. He wanted emails. And he said from January of 2022 till this request is filled. And these messages appear in February and March and roughly around there. I don't know it all off the top of my head. I mean, I have excerpts of them. I have a paper version of excerpts of them as well, if the court would like to look at it. But I don't have any objection with trying to get to the bottom of, did DA Civil really claw back, the romantic messages? I don't have an issue with doing that, but we need time, and I don't want my cross to start without this clarity.
And again, as to the scope, there was testimony. I would submit that his testimony, his narrative testimony, and that of Lee Kennett was similar in that in August of 2022, there wasn't an issue. Apparently, he had seen what was going to be turned over to Mr. Gman, and she did too, and there were no concerns. So my concern is what the state is attempting to present to the jury is outside of the scope of what my client's knowledge was at that point in time.
They both saw what was going to be produced?
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is this. This guy got on the stand and said, I want every Teams message admitted, but I haven't really compiled it. State, little help. Here's the Teams messages that we have. And now they have a problem with them. And again, I reiterate, I am okay with taking the time to try to delve in to see.
Okay, but how much? You need 30 minutes? We can break till 1 o'clock?
I mean, I don't know if it lasts that long. I mean, my thought would be, can we take a lunch break? Because if it
Right,
takes
that's what
long,
I'm saying. It's 12:30?
Yeah.
Just take 30 more minutes till 1 o'clock?
that's fine. Yeah, you're right.
1:15?
Sure.
We can
Okay.
attempt to. Yeah, we can.
1:15. All right, we'll see you guys at 1:15. And
Okay, so if I'm able to unpack what just happened there, he and this is why, by the way, you have an attorney, sir. This is why you don't get up there and think that you're smarter than everybody else and that you're just going to testify, and his ego again is going to be the undoing of him. So what happened is he testified that he didn't have a problem with these Teams messages and that he would like them admitted for the jurors. Well, now the prosecution is saying that by doing that, he really stepped in it, and that we'll go ahead and give you everything that you've asked for. And that includes a bunch of messages that we're sure that you don't want the jurors to see. So he thinks he's being too clever by half by showing how confident he is in allowing the jurors to see the Teams messages. But, when I said all of them, I don't really mean all of them. Now, there's some sort of dispute here, I think, that may be legitimate, and I'm only getting this from Tellis's attorney, who I actually do trust as being forthright in what he's trying to argue to the court here, but that when he was referencing, meaning Tellis, the messages, he's speaking only about the messages that he was aware of, which are somehow vetted, which wouldn't include the naughty messages, which are I think is what he's trying to keep out in front of the jury. All of that is kind of a bunch of whirlwind and, maybe much ado about nothing. I don't think the whole prosecution case certainly hinges upon it. I think they like the idea that he may have blown up something in his own face. But I think what the prosecution is saying more than anything is, I'm not going to proceed until we have this issue sussed out, because I plan on getting into that if he's actually opened the door to it. But the other remarkable thing about all of this is, no, Afton, it is zero. It is, put it this way. It's rare for a defendant to testify in the narrative And it's even more rare than that to have a defendant address the court this way. Never seen it. When I have clients who want to take a potty break, I make sure that that's coming through me. That they are never to address the court themselves unless directly asked to during some sort of plea that they're taking or a waiver of a right or something, that they need to vocalize that themselves. The fact that you just saw this man actually making an argument to the court is just beyond me. But essentially we're so far into bizarro world here that he basically acting as his own co-counsel. And you know what? The judge, I'm not going to try to say that she shouldn't be allowing it. I think she's just trying to get through all of this like everybody else. I think they're just trying to get this all over with as quickly as they can, not create any kind of issues where this man can go back and say, I wasn't given the opportunity to defend myself. But it's pretty incredible to watch. How can he stand and argue unless he's co-counsel? I mean, it's not like some sort of a badge you wear, an appointment that you're given, but you're absolutely right. I think it was well within the judge's rights to say, sit down, sir. You're not testifying. You're a witness. Sit down, allow your attorney to speak for you. But everybody just took a seat back. And I think it has to do with, let's just get through it. How's Tella's performance as a defense attorney? About as dog doo-doo as his performance as a witness has been. All right. Should we try to get to the beginning of cross-examination here, where I imagine that the good stuff is going to begin? And I expect that they will have this whole issue with the text messages or the I guess they're calling them team messages all sussed out by then. All right. We're going to skip ahead quite a bit here. That's good. Okay, where are we at? Bear with me, guys. Sorry. I think it's going to start right after this. But yeah, I mean, this is incredible. You're getting to see a lot of stuff here that you just do not see normally in court. A defendant testifying is fairly rare, but you do see it. I've seen it in my career. A defendant testifying in the narrative is incredibly rare. I cannot really remember a time I ever saw it. Like I said, I think there may have been some misdemeanor dealing with a person who was battling mental health issues, where his attorney was in a position he had to let him testify. But a person like this, a person who is fairly, well put together as far as they have a job, holding down a job, wife and family, everything else, for them to take it upon themselves that they want to testify, and they want to testify to such an extent that their attorney can't even sign off on it and be the one to examine them, just, never heard of. I think I don't know if we'll see a situation like this again. And then to have this kind of shenanigans of the, arguing with the judge, making comments in court. It's just all fantastic stuff. Actually, I don't think I went far enough ahead. So let me see here. There.
Okay, the record reflect that the hearing's taking place outside the presence of the jury panel. Are you ready to go, Mr. Hamner?
Yes, Your Honor, and I guess we're just trying to make a record of
Yes.
the
Go
situation.
ahead.
So it sounds as if the FOIA request, that production based on their policies claws back personal information. I don't know if they've been able to acquire that information through the process of this investigation. The state has all of the messages, which has been produced to the bench, so they have that as well. So we understand why there can't be a joint stipulation to those messages, but certainly, this issue will be inquired into cross based on this testimony. If I have no issue, I'll be inquiring based on the policy that he was aware of. So that'll be happening. Whether they want to admit Teams messages that are just limited only to business information, that's up to them. But we don't have a way to efficiently produce that to them.
So we don't have a stipulation.
We don't have stipulation, but in discussing this with the state and with Mr. Tellis, we are just going to leave his testimony as it stands, and will not be seeking to admit. There's been an argument that he'd open the door, but that's set aside. He is not going to be seeking to admit the information that was provided to him at that time. Is that fair?
Okay.
Yes.
right, so the state's ready.
He looks like she's been through
No, that's the
the
thing.
battle on this
That's
case.
Yes, that's.
Okay, thank you. It's marked as K3 for the record, but obviously we just won't admit it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bring him in. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Tellers, you can take a stand. Sorry about that. Thank you. Yeah, you can.
There's the grease pencil or grease pen, if anybody was wondering.
All rise for entering jury, please.
I agree, CJ. She's ready to take a vacation.
Thank you, everyone. Seated.
Does the state stipulate to the presence of the panel?
Yes.
And Mr.
Yes.
President? Okay, you may begin your cross-examination.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Sure.
And it's Mr. Tejas, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to start first with see if we can agree on a couple of things, okay? I was listening to your testimony. I'm going to publish States 311. I was listening to your testimony, and if I heard you correctly, many times during your direct examine or during your direct, you stated that this is the killer of Mr. Gman, correct?
I didn't necessarily, but I'm sure it is.
I mean, if I heard you correctly, you kept saying, looking at the killer, this guy. I know you're not saying that's me, but you don't doubt that whoever that is killed Mr. Gman. That would be fair, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I already love this guy. Already the way he started was perfect. Friendly, not gonna come at him fire and brimstone, not gonna start immediately calling him a liar. I love I'd like us to just start on the things that we can agree on. Already I just love this guy's style. And immediately let's agree upon the idea that this person, whoever that is, that person right there is the killer. And you've already got Fancy Pants over here being nervous about how to even answer that very straightforward question that he was very happy to talk about on his direct. And now all of a sudden he's realizing, he's realizing this is no longer the Tellez show or Tejas. I guess I was been wrong about this, that he's going to actually have to answer to someone for the nonsense that he's been spitting out for the last couple of hours. But just a great way to start a cross-examination. Not confrontational. Let's go ahead and talk about the things that we agree on.
You had mentioned one of the things that struck you was you watched the autopsy, or you saw the autopsy photos, and you were struck by the violence of it, correct?
No, sir.
No, you did not. Were you bothered by the photographs?
I was.
Why is that?
Gruesome. I'm not used to seeing dead people.
I think you said it was ugly. Is that correct?
I may have.
All right. And you had told this jury that you felt like it looked like someone who knew what they were doing. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You believe this was a professional hit?
And that's what I believe.
Okay. And you believe this killer is kind of almost like someone hired to do this job, like an assassin, essentially, right?
That is what I believe, yes, sir.
All right. Now I want to take a look at this picture for a second. The assassin seems to be wearing a giant sun hat. It's a pretty big hat, right?
Yes, sir.
It's fairly noticeable, right?
Mhm. Yes, sir.
You think that might attract attention?
I would think so.
Okay, but this is a professional.
Right.
All right. And this professional is also wearing a bright orange shirt, correct?
Yes, sir.
Professional?
Yes, sir.
But wouldn't that attract attention?
I think that's part of the reason, actually. If I could elaborate.
No. You believe that professional assassins want to draw attention to themselves when they're carrying out murder. That's your testimony?
When they're framing someone, yes, sir.
So the answer to my question is yes. You believe professional assassins like to draw attention to themselves.
It depends on what the nature of their goal is, and if it's to frame someone, yes, sir.
So the answer to my question is yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Your professional assassin is wearing a big saddlebag, right?
It's a big bag.
Right. He's wearing Nikes, correct?
Correct.
Not generic shoes, Nikes, isn't that right?
Right.
Okay. Gray Nikes, is that right?
Correct.
All right. Let's cue over to the overhead,
Your
if we could,
professional
or to the
assassin.
computer, if we could. All right. I'm playing the PIO video from Exhibit 338. So this is your assassin walking in the middle of the day, correct?
My assassin?
All right, this is the assassin, the killer, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Seems to have a little bit of a hitch in his getup.
Yes. I don't know. I guess it's an opinion.
And you don't disagree that's from, you've seen all the footage, that's the killer's car, right?
Yes, sir.
It's a maroon Denali, am I right?
Yes, sir.
You own a maroon Denali, isn't that correct?
I do, sir. Yes, sir.
Let me at least get to, let's look at it for a second. So there's no doubt that the killer took a maroon Yukon Denali to Gman's house to perform, as you have explained to us, to be some sort of professional hit.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'd like to publish the PowerPoint if we could.
I just really love this this attorney thought about this a while too, how he was going to start this. And I just think it's so clever. This kind of like, let's solve this mystery together, shall we? Let's you and I, Mr. Tejas, let's put our thinking caps on and let's get together and try to figure out who this killer is. Let's agree on some things. The killer wore this ridiculous sun hat in the middle of the day. The killer drove this vehicle, didn't he? Let's get down to the things you and I can agree on and help the jurors understand who may be responsible for this brutal stabbing and murder. Love that. Love it. Not even so much that it's kind of disarming to Tejas, because he seems like he's really uncomfortable at this point, but it also is just, I think, comforting to the jurors to know that they're about to get down to, brass tacks here.
It's still from Exhibit 338, Your Honor. But it is the PowerPoint video. And I want to turn our attention to slide number 72. This is after Mr. Gman has been killed. But if we watch this footage, isn't it true that we see the killer come back to the scene?
Yes.
And the killer seems to be looking around as if he forgot something, right?
I've watched the video. I don't know what he's doing.
We don't know.
Right.
But we know a professional killer killed someone in broad daylight, made it a point to park on a completely different street, but then for some reason decided, oops, I forgot something, and drove all the way back.
My belief is that he wanted to make sure to commit the crime, and then when he was done, he wanted to make sure the SUV was seen in front of the house.
So let me get this straight. We've watched the footage, right, Mr. Tellis?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that the Yukon parks on Wintergreen initially?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the streets, but I mean, if you say so, yes.
We'll put it to you this way. He didn't park on Bronze Circle, did he?
Not initially, no.
And by your logic, if the killer wanted to be seen, shouldn't he have just parked on Bronze Circle originally?
I would have thought that, if he wanted to make sure he got the job done first, that he would not have actually parked the SUV in front to begin with.
Oh, so
That's my belief, because,
okay.
again, that isn't me.
So you have a killer who goes all the way out of his way to park on a completely different street, walks the whole length, does the killing, drives out of the complex, and then makes a U-turn, comes all the way back into the complex, pulls up, gets out, looks around for something, and you believe that's all part of the assassin's plan?
And again, I don't know what he's doing in that video.
No, I'm just using your words,
No,
your thought process.
absolutely.
You believe that was all part of the plan?
I do. It wasn't me, so.
Sir, doesn't that look a little amateurish?
I would like to think that I wouldn't use my own car if I was actually the person who did this.
Well,
So,
Well, doesn't it look a little amateurish to take the steps to park on the side of the street, then you forget, but you drop probably your murder weapon, who knows, wear this goofy sun hat, a bright orange shirt. I mean, if you really think that looks like a professional killer?
I do. Again,
Okay.
it wasn't me, so
Okay.
yes.
All right, sir. And when you looked at the car, you thought, gosh, that looks just like my vehicle, right?
Except for the rims, yes, sir.
Sure, we'll get to the rims in a second. In fact, let's talk about that right now.
Yes, sir.
Here we go. Yes, this is now I'm having a good time.
Let's go to slide 41. One second. So, slide 40. All right. So you see that picture right here of the rims?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sir, do you see, we're talking like clock positions, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. You know what I'm talking about? If I'm referring to that?
12 o'clock is north.
Yes. So 12 o'clock is
Or up.
totally to the top. And then you've got 6 o'clock is to the bottom. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So look at this bottom right-hand picture. Isn't it true that when you look at the front wheel, the spokes on this wheel are not all the same size, correct?
Right.
They alternate in thickness,
Correct. Correct.
At the 12 o'clock position, it's a narrow spoke, right?
Yes, sir.
And then the next two on either side of it widen out. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
And in the 6 o'clock position, that's a fat, wide spoke. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
And it's surrounded by two narrow spokes. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it totals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 different spokes. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
And just to be clear, whenever you look at one spoke, let's say the 12 o'clock position, when you look at the opposite position, it's the thicker one, right?
Yes, sir.
And so if you look at a smaller one, if you look the opposite direction, it's going to be thicker, correct?
Yes, sir.
This is his closing argument too, by the way. I mean, that's what's amazing about this is he's using the defendant here in such a clever way to present his own closing argument through the defendant's testimony. That's the kind of, somebody said 4D chess. You're absolutely right. That's the kind of next level, manipulation that is taking place here when you see a skilled trial attorney do their job. He is using Tejas as a witness, not only against himself, but also as a person to help him present his own closing argument. This right here about the spokes, I'm sure, had he not had this opportunity before, would have been something he highlighted in closing arguments. But now, doesn't it sound all that more delicious coming from the defendant himself?
And when we look at the picture of this widened spoke on the killer's car, you see that on this wheel on the front, you see it on the back wheel. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
Publishing 322. We could cue over. That's your car, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
There's no doubt about it, is it?
No, I don't believe so.
That is the car that you don't normally drive. Isn't that right? Because you drive a BMW.
Right. I drive it occasionally to make sure that the battery doesn't die.
Right. Let's look at your wheels. Because your testimony was, my rims are different. Let's look, no, sir, question pending. Let's look at the front tire. You see the front tire?
Yes, sir.
The one closest to the 12 o'clock position is thick, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
The one directly opposite that, closest to the 6 o'clock position, is narrow. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
Just like the car in the video. Isn't that correct?
It has the same type of rims, yes.
It does. But that's not what you just told that jury on direct examination. You said you looked at a tweet from General Bob Custer and you thought, oh, gosh, my rims.
Yes,
You
because
relied on some person in the Twitter room to give you peace of mind about whether or not your car matches the killer's car.
yes,
So now looking at your rims, because let's look at them. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spokes on that wheel, correct?
yes, sir.
Just like the killer's car.
Similar to the killer's car, yes,
Not
sir.
similar, exactly like it, correct?
But
for
they're not
him.
the same rims.
Sir, then let's take it this way. The 12 o'clock position is a fat, wide spoke, correct?
Yes, sir.
The 6 o'clock position is narrow, correct?
Yes,
When we look at the photograph of the killer's car, it had that same pattern, isn't that right?
yes, sir.
And when we look at the other rims, let's say we're looking at a rim here in about the 1 o'clock position, it's narrow, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when we look at the opposite, it thickens, correct?
Yes, sir.
Just like the killer's car in the video, right?
Again, similar to the killer's car.
Right. And it's the same way on all of your wheels, isn't that right?
Right.
Okay. Now, if we could cue back over to the
Okay. I'm just going to tell you, he's having fun. I know what it sounds like to have fun in court, and he's having fun right now. This is, I mean, this is when you're firing on all pistons inside of your trial lawyer head, and the defendant could be saying anything at this point, and he's going to have a fun time with it. Because and you know, listen, it's low hanging fruit. I mean, he's got an incredibly guilty man in front of him, and he's dealing with some fantastically impactful evidence. But he's just having, you know, this is him just putting work in on the heavy bag at this point. He's just enjoying himself. He must be really regretting bringing up the rims now. Yeah, I don't even know where he was going with those rims. But look at his narcissistic, entitled little face that feels that he somehow has a clever answer to this. But I have noticed he's not taking notes with his grease pen. So I hope he remembers to bring this up on redirect. But just really good trial work, cross-examination by a prosecutor. Prosecutors aren't given a whole bunch of opportunity to do cross, especially of the defendant. So good for him for really digging into it here. That's your car, isn't it? Even his intonation is great. Yeah, it's fantastic.
PowerPoint presentation. Let's look at these windows.
Yeah.
Bottom right-hand corner, sir. The front windows are not tinted, are they?
No, sir.
But the back ones are, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's cue over to your car. Your front windows are not tinted, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And your back ones are, correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Coincidence?
I don't think so. I think the killer got a car like mine.
Okay. So you would agree your car looks exactly
That's the
like
definition
the
of a
No, sir.
coincidence.
No, it doesn't?
There's a difference with that paint on the lower left-hand side that Mr. Mogga testified about.
Okay. Let's talk about other similarities. We've seen footage from the video with the visor down, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I can pull up the slide, but we don't need to because you remember seeing it on the survey, on the videos, right, from the
Right.
PowerPoint?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, published in 317. And look at that. Your visor's down, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're suggesting that your professional hitman in the funny hat knew about your visor as well?
I'm saying that Mr. Mogg pulled my visor down.
Ah, but you didn't see that, did you, sir?
I didn't see him do it, but
Right. You didn't see it with your own two eyes, correct?
that is correct.
You're just telling it out of whole cloth, correct? You're speculating. Is that right?
I'm speculating just to the extent of who exactly did it, but sure.
Right. You don't even know who it was, correct?
It could have been another officer, yes.
Okay. So now it's not just Officer Mogg that's part of this conspiracy. There's other officers too. How many officers were part of this conspiracy?
I don't know.
Well, please tell me. How many do you think are involved?
I couldn't tell you, sir.
So you have no idea, but you think it might be Mogg and another officer. But you just can't come up with a number,
Well,
correct?
Mr. Mogg actually made some false representations about what happened. So yes.
Okay.
I mean, so
Sir,
I don't know what his motivation would be otherwise.
Sir, isn't it possible that in your rush to drive back home, you just didn't even realize that the down visor might even be something of significance? Isn't that possible?
No, sir.
No. So you believe that it must have been the police, but you never witnessed anything like that happen?
I just
Correct?
know that I did not commit the murder, so that could not have been
Okay.
my
I
car.
understand you're not taking responsibility, sir, but just to get back to my question, you never saw anyone manipulate your car, correct?
I never saw anyone firsthand, no.
Thank you. But the visor is down, just like the killer.
And
Correct.
anyone could have removed it at any point in time,
The
sir.
answer to my question is yes. The visor is down, just like the killer's car, correct?
Anyone could have moved it at any point.
So the answer to my question is yes.
At
The
what-
visor is down, just like the killer's car.
You're talking about, obviously, at this point in time,
Your visor is down in your Yukon, just like the killer's Yukon, correct?
and again, without knowing who did it, yes.
Thank you. You were here yesterday and you talked for approximately 2 hours. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
And then you came here this morning and you talked for another hour or so, correct?
Yes, sir.
There's one thing I didn't hear you mention. The DNA. I'd like to talk about that with you. You're not disputing that your DNA is underneath Mr. Garman's fingernails, are you?
Yes, I am.
Okay. But you've heard the testimony. It's there, correct?
I don't know if it was there or at what point it might have gotten there, sir.
Okay. I'm not asking you how it got there. Are you really denying that your DNA is underneath the fingernails?
Without knowing the truth, yes, I am.
Okay. Well, you've heard witnesses testify.
Right.
So the DNA lab's in on it too?
I don't know. I don't know at what point. I don't know what point this sample was
How did it get
collected.
there? Sir, please tell this jury, how in the world does your DNA get underneath Mr. Garman's fingernails?
I don't know because I did not kill Mr. German.
You have no idea how it could have gotten underneath your fingernails, correct?
Under my
I'm
fingernails?
sorry, under his fingernails, correct?
I don't know that it ever was, sir.
All right, let's do it another way. You and Mr. Gman are not friends, are you?
No.
Okay, you don't hang out with him ever?
Sir, I did not ever hang out with Mr. when he was
The answer
alive.
to my question is yes. You didn't hang out with him ever, correct?
I did not.
He's never invited you over to his house.
No, sir.
You've never hung out, had drinks at a bar,
No,
correct?
sir.
There would be really no opportunity for him ever to put his hands on you in any sort of social situation, correct?
Correct, sir.
And
This is good. This is what I've been waiting for. Thank you. This guy's been taking notes from me. It's obvious that this is what I would have loved to have highlighted myself, and he's doing an incredible job of doing it. You spent 2 hours or longer getting out, and that's why you don't object. That's why they were letting him speak so much. That's why they were letting him carry on for this exact moment. You had every opportunity to tell this jury everything they possibly could have wanted to hear. And thank you so much, Perry. And you didn't mention anything about the DNA under Gman's fingernails. You didn't mention the most important piece of evidence in this entire case. Isn't that true, sir? And the fact that this guy has no better answer at this point. I mean, listen, his DNA is under there because he killed the poor man. But the fact that he hasn't prepared an answer better than this is also amazing to me. And I'll tell you why. Again, I don't think it's because he's a stupid man. I think he's because he's so caught up in his own head and ego and narcissism. I don't think he thinks that it's that big of a deal. And so he didn't want to address it because he thought, well, it really isn't going to matter to the jurors once they know about the great work I did as an administrator. And once they know, and once they hear me say I didn't do this murder, they're not going to really care about this DNA. Good on this attorney. Well done in the way that he's doing this. Well done on the entire demeanor and attitude and rhythm that he's striking in court. He's not allowing this guy to get away with anything, but he's also not getting entirely too agitated with him. This is really great, and it woke me up after everything we've been listening to.
yet, these two people who are not friends, your DNA just happens to be underneath his fingernails. Correct?
No, sir.
Okay. You just don't think it was legitimately placed there, correct? Or are you just ignoring the testimony of all of the witnesses that talked about how your DNA was underneath the fingernails?
Again, at some point or another, I believe it was planted because I did not kill Mr. Gman. So,
Right. And by that logic, if you believe it was planted, you were at least admitting, yes, my DNA is underneath his fingernails, correct? Can you at least agree with me on that?
whether it came from a sample of the fingernails or a different sample altogether, I don't know. I couldn't tell you, sir.
The answer to my question is yes. You're at least acknowledging my
No, sir.
physical DNA is underneath the fingernails.
No, sir.
Okay, great. So you're just going to disregard what all the other DNA witnesses said about this, correct?
Okay.
That's fair. That's fine. Totally fine.
That's fine, dude.
Let's
do
I still
do.
want to touch on this. You would agree that if I came up to you and I scratched your face or scratched your chest, there's a possibility I could get skin cells underneath my fingernails, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You would agree that if someone was trying to fight for their life and were scratching at the killer, they could potentially get DNA from the killer underneath their fingernails. That's a possibility, right?
Is that speculation or is that?
No, that's a possibility.
No one's bailing you out
I
here,
imagine
dude.
so.
Okay. Let's talk about your house for a second. When they went over to your house, they took a look underneath your couch. Publishing 224. That's your couch, right?
That is my couch.
And underneath your couch is a shoe and a chopped up shoe, right?
Right.
That's the gray Nike, correct?
Pure so, yes, sir.
Publishing 228. That's what it looks like, correct?
Yes, sir.
It's gray in color, correct?
Yes.
It is a Nike brand, correct?
Yes, sir.
It has a black swoosh, correct?
Yes, sir.
It has 4 horizontal or at least vertical bars in the middle of that shoe, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. You would agree with me. That's the shoe that the killer was wearing, correct?
I don't know that that's the case.
You don't know? Well, it sure looks a heck of a lot like it, right?
Yes, it could be the same model, but it could be a different size.
Sure. Let's just look at it.
Hmm?
I mean,
I don't disagree that it's the same model.
right. It's the exact same type of shoe, right?
Right.
Okay. So we're not in dispute about it. We can agree on that, right?
Right, yes, sir.
And your DNA is in those shoes that are found in your house, correct?
I don't know that to be the case.
Okay, but that's the whole thing of like, it's a setup, and I think the DNA people are framing me, something along those lines, right?
Whether it's them or someone else.
You've heard the results. The results say that your DNA is in that shoe. I mean, we did hear that, correct?
That is what we heard.
Okay, and you just think it's just another part of the conspiracy to somehow get your DNA into those shoes.
So I believe that there are officers who, when they think that a fellow officer needs help plugging holes in the case, that they're willing to do what they have to.
Okay, all right. You character.
See, this is what I mean too about being given permission to go after somebody on cross. This guy has come, he is so egotistical and been taking his sweet time with all of his bullshit for the past 2 hours that I think every one of the jurors is cheering this on. I don't think any one of them, he's getting a little bit sassy and he's getting a little snarky and he's throwing some attitude and ribs in there. Nobody's stopping him. Judge isn't stopping him. And I think the jurors are secretly cheering him on through this whole thing because he's been given absolute permission by this guy over the last few hours that they've all had to endure to go after him like this. They want to hear the answers to these questions. And again, he's doing his entire closing argument through this man. It's amazing. I mean, he's going to have 2 bites at a closing argument because of this opportunity that he's been given. Really quick, I want to thank some of our new members: Ms. B, Kathy W, Schultz, Becky 20, Bonnie Bailey, I Love Justice, Cat 3309. Thank you guys so much. Jody for the gift, everything else. It's fantastic. Thank you guys for being here for this. You're making it such an enjoyable experience. Let's get back into this because this is really fantastic to watch. He's a very skilled attorney. He's doing a remarkable job. Even, just the pacing, tenor, everything about it. Did they find Gman's DNA on those shoes? I think there was some issue about whether or not the blood came back to Gman, but I'm sure we're going to hear about it in this closing argument that he's giving through the defense testimony.
This case is a case that has holes.
I think that Detective Jappy decided he wanted me for this, and everybody decided that system because they thought,
Jappy's a part of it now too.
oh, he's always
We've
been.
got the DNA lab, we've got Jappy, we've got Mog. We haven't even touched Compass yet. We'll get there because they're part of it too, correct?
So they paid Detective Jappy, yes.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to get to all that in
Of
a
course,
second.
absolutely, sir.
So here's the thing. Are the shoes underneath the sofa of your house, are those actually your shoes?
That I don't know for sure. I do have similar ones, but again, I have not,
Oh, you similar. Publishing 360.
Mhm.
It's the same shoe, isn't it?
It is potentially the same shoe as the one, yes.
Well, sir,
Mhm.
you're not doubting that this is a photograph of shoes that belong to you, correct?
Right.
Okay.
This is me.
So this wasn't planted evidence, right?
The picture of the shoe, no.
Okay, great. And you were claiming ownership over that shoe, right?
Right.
So it's gray in color, right?
Mhm.
It's got the black Nike swoosh, correct?
Right.
It's got the 4 black horizontal bars in it, right? And you would agree with me, when you wore those shoes, you probably left your DNA behind there in those shoes, right?
Yes, sir.
And you're saying now that it's just a pure coincidence that the exact same type of shoe sitting underneath your couch in your house with your DNA on it, that's not the shoe?
Remember that I was under surveillance by Detective Jappy, and this was on a day that I was under surveillance.
Let's get back to my question, sir.
Yeah.
You're trying to tell me that the shoe that you see in that photograph, that you claim ownership on, that you say you put your DNA in, that looks identical to the shoe that's underneath your sofa, underneath the recliner. You're saying those two are not the same shoes?
I don't know that they are.
Okay. It's just another crazy coincidence, right?
When somebody chops up a shoe and puts it under the couch, that's a little strange.
Right. And here's the interesting thing. Look at the date on this.
Here's the interesting thing.
This is August 19th,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, sir. And again,
We're talking,
surveillance started at 8:16.
right? No. But this image is in your phone, right?
This particular image, I'm sure I'd likely texted it to my wife to say, hey, I'm rock climbing indoors.
So here's the thing. So you're saying, okay. So you believe because you were under surveillance, that they knew the type of shoes you were wearing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You've seen the photos from the surveillances, right?
I have seen some of the photos from some of them. Not everything was
You're
produced to me.
not wearing the Nikes.
Not everything was produced to me, sir.
Okay. Of what was produced to you, which was everything,
It was not.
You're not wearing the Nikes on the days that you're surveilled, isn't that right?
This 819 was
Sir, I need you to
during.
focus on my question. Isn't it true on the days that you are surveilled, you're not wearing the Nikes, correct?
That is not true.
Okay, so we'll pull them and we'll take a walk down that lane because every single day, isn't it true you are not wearing the Nikes?
That is not true, sir.
Okay, you're wearing your little moccasins, the gray ones, the topsiders. Remember those? You own those, right?
Whatever.
Gray topsiders, right?
What are topsiders? I don't know.
I'm dating myself, I guess. But they're like a boat shoe. They're kind of like it's like almost like a grayish felt, but they're not Nikes. You
But-
were wearing those when you were surveilled, correct?
If you want to put the photos, I can confirm
The
whatever.
answer to my question is no, you don't know the answer as to what shoes you're wearing on the day that you were surveilled.
I have like a tan shoe that I probably wore during some.
Well, don't worry. We'll get the photos and we'll
Okay.
go through it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
Please
here's
don't.
the thing. If Compass Realty framed you, how in the world would they know about these shoes?
Again, I said that I was under surveillance by Metro on this date, 8/19, and obviously they took photos
Uh-huh.
and they provided those to Detective Jappy.
Okay.
So
So what? And then Jappy did what with them?
pass them to whomever he needed to.
Easy peasy.
Again, I didn't commit the
Easy
murder, so
peasy.
Okay. So, sir, there's no way Compass Realty could know you had shoes like that.
they're not without being informed.
Okay. And this, your phone isn't produced until after you're arrested, correct?
I don't know when it was produced.
You had your phone with you on the day that you're arrested, right?
Yes, sir.
Like you didn't give it to Jappy in early September, did you?
No, sir.
No, you had it with you the whole time until you get arrested, right?
That I know, yes, sir.
And that was on September 7th, correct?
Yes, sir.
Therefore, the only way anyone could learn that information inside your phone would have to be after the murder was committed, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. You think there's a way that someone could have found the contents of your phone prior to the murder?
We heard earlier about the fact that someone can actually hack phones, yes. And whether it was that they found it that way or by surveillance,
We heard about the hack. It was just a question asked by your attorney. No witness ever testified that your phone was hacked, correct?
but you asked if there was only one means, and
Okay.
no, there's more than one means, sir.
Okay. Sir, let's just be clear about one thing. You have had possession of your phone through the entire month of August of 2022, correct?
It wasn't in my sight 24/7.
Sure. But you weren't loaning to anyone, correct?
No, sir.
You didn't give it to Compass Realty, correct?
That would be weird.
Yeah, it would be. You didn't give it to Derek Jappy, correct?
No, sir.
You didn't give it to Cliff Mogg, correct?
No, sir.
Because you didn't even know who Cliff Mogg was at that point, correct?
No, sir.
You didn't give your phone to anybody from Metro, correct?
That's correct, sir.
All right, so now let's get to some of the other interesting things that are in your phone. Oh, by the way, and you also have DNA on the scissors, right? Or are we denying that? Or is that one you're at least acknowledging because of the cooking thing?
No, my blood was on those scissors.
Okay, so Metro got that one right.
Yes.
That wasn't a frame job.
No, well, I do think that they used some of the DNA from that, but
I have to see this too. So, like if Metro's really, do you think Metro's framing you for this?
as I said before, I think that we've got some officers who are overzealous and who decided to help Jappy plug holes in his case,
Sure.
not knowing what his relationship was with Compass Realty.
Here's a
Objection,
sir.
if you'd be allowed to answer the question before.
Okay,
Next question, please.
sir, I got a question for you. If the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department wanted to frame you, why didn't they put the murder weapon in your house?
I
Bingo.
think that maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. I mean,
Great question.
Great
because
question.
If the murder weapon that had Gary's DNA in it was inside your house, wouldn't that be an even better case?
yeah, but at the same time, I think if,
But it's not there, is it?
no,
No, it's not. Even though, according to you, they control everything, they don't put the murder weapon on you?
mhm.
Does
Well,
that make any sense?
I think it does.
Okay. How about this? If Compass Realty wants to kill you, why don't they encourage Metro like, we'd really like you to put the murder weapon in there? Why didn't they do something like that?
I don't know.
That seems really odd that the most significant thing is not in your house, correct?
I think what's odd is that 5 days after the murder, that supposedly there was a shoe
So the answer
and
to my
also a
question-
hat in my house.
So the answer to my question, the most significant piece of evidence, the murder weapon, is not in your house despite your theory you've been framed.
That's correct, sir.
Let's talk about this. We've seen the picture of the killer. What's the most notable thing, by far the most notable thing on the killer's person?
It's either the hat or the shirt.
It's the shirt, right?
Mhm.
And that shirt is not in your house, is it?
No,
If Metro or Compass or Rita or Cliff all wanted to frame you, why didn't they put the bright orange coat in your house?
I couldn't speak to that. All I can tell you
Doesn't
is,
that sound not very professional if they're trying to set you up?
I don't know, maybe for plausibility's sake, they put hats.
Oh, they want to
I'm
dial
not
it
sure.
back.
This is
I don't know.
Okay. Here's another thing. Why don't they cover your car in Gehrman's DNA? Why do they do that?
Because they didn't have access to the car until the day that Mr. Mogg took photos.
They have, I mean, they control everything. They take it to their CSI garage, they rub it full of DNA. Why is there no DNA of Gehrman in your car? I mean, if they want to frame you, why isn't it there?
You know what's remarkable about this? moment too is he's taking what should have been, maybe points that the defense could argue, the lack of DNA on the car, or the fact that the murder weapon was never recovered, or the fact that that orange shirt was never recovered. And he's now taking an opportunity to spin that around and show how it doesn't fit in to this absolutely absurd and ridiculous theory about him being framed, and therefore make it even more, add to the strength of the idea that he's in fact the one who did it. And the reason that those things don't exist is that he hid all of those things. I hope I'm making sense here, because I'm having problems unscrambling it from my own brain. But essentially, these are things that in a normal case, a normal defense would point out: no murder weapon, no orange shirt, no DNA on the car. These are things that should have been strong points for the defense. But now, by pointing them all out through this cross-examination as how those don't fit into the framing theory, he's strengthening the prosecution's case that this man is the man responsible for the murder. It really just, I really like it. I really like it. It's really a cross-examination on a different level. And this guy is just doesn't have an answer for any of it. And he's so narcissistic and thinking that he has an answer for everything that it is that much more, it stands out that much more when he really doesn't have an answer for something. Jocelyn says he has taken one not on the pad in front of him. He keeps pretending to start. Yeah, not one note. Yeah, sorry. He got that pen and pad out like he was going to really, dig into this, and he's just been too busy trying to keep himself afloat. It's really well done. Really well done. This is nice.
Do you have an answer for that?
Sir, I don't know.
Okay. But one of the things that we do know is that prior to your arrest, you do in fact wash that car, correct?
The exterior only.
You still wash it, correct?
Oh, yes.
And your testimony to this jury was, after Rita told me about the tweets about the car that I found so strikingly similar, I went out and washed my car. You told them that on the rant. Isn't that correct?
No, sir.
You mean Roberta?
I meant Roberta. After Roberta told you, gosh, that looks just like your car, and you read John R. Custer's tweet, you went out and that prompted you to start washing the Yukon.
No.
That's not your testimony.
No. I said that I washed all three vehicles.
Great. Including your Yukon.
Yes.
Right. Because you agree, if you only wash one of them, that might look a little suspicious, right?
I don't know that I was planning things to be suspicious or not suspicious, sir.
Okay. But let's just be clear. You would agree with me, washing things can make evidence go away. Isn't that right?
I would think DNA evidence would be inside of a vehicle, not on the outside, sir.
Okay. Sir, you'd be surprised.
Okay.
But that's
well,
not
I guess I would be surprised then.
My question is this. Washing things can make evidence go away, correct?
Could it possibly? Yes.
Thank you. Let's continue down the path of what's in your phone. Going to be, I hope I didn't ruin this. I'm going to be, let's see if this pulls up. We're going to be publishing Exhibit 354. Sure. Let's close out of this. Let's look at, all right, let's look at this. Well, let's do it. We'll do it this way. We're going to, if we could just cue over for a second to the overhead. This is this extraction report that has a lot of images regarding Google Maps in your phone. Do you remember hearing testimony about this?
That's what I heard.
Okay. And the date on this is August 12th of 2022. Isn't that correct? That's when these files appear. Isn't that right?
That's when it purports to have appeared.
Okay. Sir, you would agree with me. You don't actually have to go to Bronze Circle to get Google Maps to generate these images, correct? All you have to do is go to the website. Isn't that right?
For any location, sure. Yes, sir.
And this is what, about 2 to 3 weeks before Mr. Gehrman is killed?
If we can trust the date, yes.
All right.
If we can trust the date.
So, sir, let's. I'm opening the folder that says Bronze Circle. If we could cue over, please. That's Jeff Garman's house, correct?
I have come to learn that it is his house.
That's a great point. You've come to learn that because prior to this all happening, you had never been over to the house, correct?
Correct.
You'd have no reason to be over at that house, correct?
That is absolutely correct.
You don't even know where he lives because I'm sure Mr. Garman didn't give you his personal address.
That is absolutely correct.
And yet the weird thing is, when we go through these images, when we start getting to like the Google Maps data, like that's his house, right?
It looks like that is the house.
Yeah.
That is a weird thing.
Same thing. That's his house, right?
It appears to be.
Like if we look over here in the back, that's literally the very spot where Mr. Garman breathes his last breath. Isn't that right?
Objection, all speculation.
That's the very last spot that we see Mr. Garman from that body cam, right? He's lying right over there.
It looks like a similar area.
Similar. It's the area, isn't it?
If you say so, sure.
So you don't believe that's the spot?
I mean, it looks like the house, so I would think,
How about there? Isn't that where Mr. Garman was found by the police?
and I would think likely so.
And the very spot that his body is lying is inside your phone.
That is very strange. I mean, how does someone plan to have a victim in a particular area at their home? That's, again,
So you would agree with me
That is
that if you
very
were planning to
strange.
kill someone at their house, it might be a good idea to get a lay of the land, right?
I've never plotted to kill anyone.
Well, I didn't say you. I'm just talking hypothetically. You would agree with me that if you were planning to kill someone, it might be a good idea to get a lay of the land,
I
correct?
object to that hypothetical question. He's not an expert, so.
Oh, well, he can answer.
Let me ask you that question one more time. You'd agree with me. If you're planning on killing someone, it's a good idea to get the lay of the land, right?
I don't know. I don't know what the circumstances are. I don't know what you're talking about as far as where you want to, do this deed or whatever.
Mr. Tellis, if you wanted, let's do it. You don't want to answer the question. We'll do it another way.
Again, I object from characterization.
Mr. Tellis, if you're planning on doing something, you want to prepare for it, correct?
It depends on what you're planning to do.
Okay. How about your work? As a public administrator, did you prepare every day to go to work to be competent at what you're doing?
Yes.
Did you do that because it's important to do the job correctly?
Yes, sir.
And if the stakes are really big, you want to make sure you're super prepared?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there's over 100 images of Bronze Circle neighborhood in your house, correct? In your phone, isn't that right?
I don't know that they are, sir.
Okay, well then let's start clicking.
Plus, again, I wouldn't use my card. It's
It's not my question. My question is, this is contained in your phone,
Incredible.
right, sir?
I don't believe so.
Okay, you don't
if
believe so?
it is in there, I didn't put it there, sir.
Okay, so the answer is it's there, but you didn't put it there, correct?
Again, I do not know that it's there, and I certainly did not put it there.
Okay, so we're just, okay, sir. You did.
You're asking me to testify
sir,
something that I can't tell you is true.
Right, but you did hear the testimony of someone coming to like looked in his phone and that stuff is there, correct?
That's what they said.
It's the same phone that your expert looked at, correct? To extract Celebrite data from, right? It's the exact same phone, correct?
Sure.
Did you ever hear Mr. Aguero ever say that your phone was compromised in any way? Did you ever hear that from him?
We never asked him that question.
Okay, but he didn't say it, did he?
The question was never asked.
Right, he looked at your data, he prepared a report and alerted no one to any problems with your phone, correct?
I don't know.
Yes, I object to, he was not called upon to review the phone, he reviewed the Celebrite extraction from the phone, so I object to this line of question.
We can move on. You heard from Matt Hobannon from the DFL department. He testified that there weren't any issues with this phone, correct? When he looked at data that came from it, correct?
He said that, I guess they try not to modify contents of things, but he didn't say that it was impossible.
Okay. Here, well, we can do this too. You got up on direct examination and you went through message by message by message, and you didn't complain about any of the messages that were on September 2nd, correct?
I dispute.
I object this complaint.
Sure. You offered testimony to this jury about the timeline, correct?
Yes.
You went text by text and phone call by phone call and you explained things, right?
Right.
At no point did you say, oh, there's a problem here, correct?
Correct.
You had no problem with that information, did you?
Right.
Okay. Sir, do you find it a little bit strange that when you find information that's helpful for you in your phone, you don't think there's a problem with it, but when there's damaging evidence in your phone, you believe maybe it's been hacked or compromised?
I do think that if someone was trying to frame me, that Obviously, they would leave the content that I made on the phone as well as whatever they decided to put on there. Yes.
And as we see here, like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different houses are being photographed, correct?
If that is truly what was on my phone, then supposedly sure.
Okay. Here's a good example. In this image, there's a security camera being focused on in the image, correct?
That's what it appears to be, which brings up a question that I would have.
There's no question pending, and you're going to get a chance on redirect. You'll be able to say whatever you need to say. But
Let's
be
take
clear.
a note about that.
There's an image that isolates on a security camera for the next door neighbor, Mr. Gman. It's right there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. There's one right there.
And here was something I remember you told me about. When you started out, what was your first job again?
IT.
IT.
Hmm.
You got a technical background, correct?
Right.
I believe even on direct examination, you described yourself as a techie, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
So you know your way around a computer, right?
Right.
Fair to say you know your way around different software, correct?
Right.
Fair to say you know your way around a cell phone, right?
Right.
You certainly know how to use Google Maps, right?
I think a lot of people do.
Right. Anyone could use that, correct?
Right.
And you would consider yourself a fairly thorough person in your work as a public administrator, right?
More thorough than to do something like this, sure.
You consider yourself detail-oriented?
I do.
Okay. Can we cue over for 1 second to the overhead? There's over 132 images in your phone focusing on that. Would you say that's a lot of detail?
If that was on my phone, I guess I would say yes.
Okay.
God. I mean, you applaud this prosecutor, and I do, and I'm not trying to pull back any of the accolades that he deserves, but this is really just, playing with a dead mouse already at this point. I mean, this is just, he's having a field day here. It's, of course you're going to look really good when you've got all this material to work with, but good for him to having at it. This cross-examination was won about an hour ago, by the way. And at this point, he's just doing this for the family and the jurors and everybody else so that they can feel like, this man actually had to sit there and answer for feeling like he could get away with this and lie to these jurors' faces. Yeah, no objections from the defense. Good on him. I mean, what are they going to object to? Why prolong this? I think he's just thinking, let's get this over with. There's no way to salvage this at this point.
And then let's talk about the Popeyes thing, publishing 364. Do you remember these images?
Yes.
Okay.
I remember them being presented as being allegedly on my phone.
Right. The testimony was it was on your phone. You just don't believe you had anything to do with it, correct?
Again, I don't know that they were ever on my phone. I know that I did not take those photos.
Okay. So you're just denying what you heard.
I'm saying that whatever the testimony is, that it could have been placed on my phone, or who knows.
The testimony was it was found on your phone, correct?
It was allegedly found on an image of my phone.
Okay. So, if we could cue over to the overhead or the computer. We talked about being detailed oriented. You would agree this is numerous images from the same spot, correct?
It appears so.
And if we kind of look, and I just can't see because of the monitor. I mean, we're looking at that's a sedan, correct?
Yes.
Sedan, correct? Well, it's like a minivan, but it's gray
It's
in
like
color,
a
right?
crossover.
And that's gray in color, right?
Sure.
And that's a truck that's kind of a whitish gray, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another gray car, correct?
Sure.
Another gray sedan, correct?
Mm-hmm.
This one's a Honda, right?
Sure.
Or maybe that's not a Honda. I don't want to misspeak. That might be a Kia.
It looks like a Honda,
Okay, it's a Honda
I think, or it's a Hyundai.
or a Hyundai. I'm not
know.
sure. It kind of looks like an H. We've got an SUV here, but there's a lot of images here, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And according to this report, if we could cue over, got 101, correct?
That's what it alleges.
That's a lot of photos, correct?
It would be.
It looks like surveillance, doesn't it?
It looks like a stupid way to do surveillance.
Right. It looks kind of amateurish, doesn't it?
Right.
Not professional.
Right.
Is his defense
I wouldn't think.
theory
I
that honestly
wouldn't see how that
that
makes sense.
I'm too smart that if I were going to kill this man, I would have done it in a better way? Is that what he's really trying to argue, that this couldn't be me because I'm too smart for this? Again, his ego is his own undoing.
And then, sir, another thing located in your phone were these. Can we cue over to the overhead? Sir, what are we looking at here?
Looks like it's a identification of a vehicle that is owned by Mr. Gman.
It's a Honda, right?
Yes, sir.
And we know from the photographs earlier, his Honda is gray, correct? We saw from the photos, right?
I don't remember. I wasn't paying attention to the color with the earlier testimony.
You
Sorry.
have no reason to dispute me if I told you that the color of the car was gray, correct?
I don't, sir.
Okay, and we saw in those images, lots of gray cars were getting snapped, correct?
Yeah, I saw a black one and a white one, but yes.
And you know what that program that's pulling up that information is, don't you, Mr.?
That I do, yes.
That's IDI Core, correct?
Right.
That is proprietary software that is in fact used by the Public Administration's Office, correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
It gives the person at the Public Administration's Office the ability to look up personally identifying information about people, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we can see here that Jeffrey Guerin is being looked up on IDI Core, correct?
What I remember correctly looking at this was it was looked up by address.
Well, that's just one report, sir. Let's look at this result. We can see
What's
he connected.
the search term?
There's no question pending, sir.
Okay.
Take a look at registrants. What's the registrant,
Again, it's Jeffrey M. Gman.
right? And if we look down, what's the first address associated with this?
P.O. Box.
Okay, and then we go to the next entry. What's the address associated with Mr. Guerin?
7216. It's the second one related to Mr. Gman. There's a first one related to Mr. Gman, and that's the P.O. Box, which is current. The second one is 7216 Bronze Circle, Las Vegas,
Where-
Nevada, 89. I can't read
Right.
this.
Mr. Tellis, that's where Mr. Guerin lived, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's where he was murdered, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this image of his personal information and his home address is located inside your phone.
Again, I don't know that it is.
Okay, so we're just, again, we don't have to do the dance, but you're just not accepting the testimony that it was located on your phone.
That is correct.
Okay, all right. But you'd agree with me that from just that bottom there, that looks like a desktop monitor, a Dell desktop monitor, correct?
Correct.
And again, this has more information about Mr. Guerin's cars, correct?
Yes, sir.
This is IDI Core, correct?
Right.
Software that is in your office, correct?
The office said Mr. Jappy visited. Yes.
Okay. This is more, this is more IDI Core images, correct?
Appears so. Yes, sir.
Let me just come out and ask you. This is your desk, isn't it?
It probably is.
Let me ask you this. During your official duties as the public administrator, I mean, you didn't have like a case with Mr. Guerin at all, right?
No, sir, I didn't.
Okay.
And what was the search term to find that?
Well, one of the search terms was 7216 Bronze Circle, correct?
Can you show that to me?
Sure.
Guy can't help himself. Cannot help
7216
himself.
Bronze. Kick you over to the overhead. Can everybody see that? Oh, it's much better over here. This is terrible. So you can see that, right?
Yes, sir, I can.
And the date, the created time is 8/23/2022 at 6:05 p.m., correct?
Yes, that's what it purports to be.
Purports.
And that was
This
a
is just-
weekday, wasn't it?
Insulting.
I'm sure it was because, I don't know.
And there's one more thing. This wasn't converted into UTC time. So if we subtract 7 hours, that's at 11:05 a.m. in the morning on 8/23, correct?
And again, I don't know if this document's been modified by a PDF viewer or not, but
Do you
it purports to be of that day.
You recall the testimony, well, no, you recall the testimony of Matt Hovanich, which said this was not converted, and when you convert it, this search was conducted at 11 o'clock in the morning, correct? You recall him saying, I'm not asking if you agree with it, but you recall it being said.
I know that I didn't do the search, so I couldn't tell you definitively.
So I'd like you to focus on my question. Do you recall Mr. Hovanich saying that here in court?
That's what he said.
Okay. And just to be clear, publishing 351, there it is. That's a weekday. That's a Tuesday, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you typically have random people coming into your office using your desktop software?
Again, that could have been modified in a number of ways.
So,
In
sir,
a number of ways, sir.
that's not my question. My question is, as the public administrator, did you allow people to go into your office in the middle of the day and manipulate and use your computer?
I didn't allow it, but that's not to say that it didn't happen, sir.
So the answer is, you had an edict that said you're not allowed to do this, correct?
If I wasn't around or whatever, I don't know.
I mean, you would hope as the head of the department, they would have at least not used your computer, right?
I would have hoped, but you'd be surprised what happened in that office.
Okay, right, because of the conspiracy? Right, okay.
I don't know. Well, part of the conspiracy. God, what an absolute waste of everybody's time.
Isn't it true? I think we've heard from both your expert and Detective Jappy that there was no outgoing messages from your phone between 8:48 a.m. and 2:05 p.m., correct?
Right.
Okay. You mentioned, or at least we've kind of heard this comment about, well, maybe I was hacked. Just to be clear, you never reported to anyone that your phone was hacked prior to September 2nd, correct?
I wouldn't have known about it because there didn't seem to be anything wrong with the phone at the time.
So the answer is you've never reported any situation that you've
I didn't
been
have
hacked,
knowledge
correct?
of whether it had been or not.
You've never reported that your phone was stolen, correct, prior to 9/2?
That definitely did not happen.
Okay, you never reported that your house was broken into prior to 9/2,
I
correct?
did not. Nope.
And there aren't any text messages on your phone complaining about being hacked, right?
Again, if I was hacked, I might not have known it.
Well, and sometimes when we notice we've been hacked, some people will send out emails to people like, oh, ignore this email, I've been hacked, things like that, right?
There are various types of hacks, sir.
Right. But there's nothing like that on your phone either, correct?
No, and again, that doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't hacked, or that somebody didn't create a false image later or add files to that image later.
Okay. So, sir, I want to now talk to you about this conspiracy a little bit. Is Rita Reed in the conspiracy?
Well, she certainly took money from Compass Realty and Adam Fenn.
So the answer is she conspired to murder Jeff German?
I don't know to what extent she had knowledge of anything other than to make sure that I got taken down.
Taken down. So she conspired to have you framed for the murder of Jeff German.
I don't know that she was privy to that particular part of
So
it.
she's not part of the conspiracy. to
I
murder
can't
Jeff
say
German.
either way, sir.
Okay, so you're not tying her to this?
I don't have any evidence to tie
Can
her
we,
to
can we
this.
rule her out?
Jack, you have to be allowed to answer your questions.
You gotta kind of get it.
Sir, go ahead, please finish.
What was the
Okay,
question
I'll
at
ask
this
the
point?
question again. Can we rule Rita Reed out of your conspiracy to murder Jeff German?
I think it's weird that maybe it's not weird. Obviously, you've got to try to minimize the concern that I have with this and try to make me seem like I'm crazy for it. But
I'm
there's
just-
the evidence to back up what has been occurring. So that is what it is, sir.
Okay, so let's focus on my question. Can we rule out?
I don't know that we can either way, sir.
Okay, so it's possible she's part of it.
I would be surprised, but I couldn't rule it out.
Okay, so it's possible.
Anything is possible.
Okay, Alicia Goodwin, is she part of this conspiracy?
Again, part of the conspiracy, sure. Part of a conspiracy,
Let me specify. Is she part of the conspiracy to murder Jeff German?
I would think it's unlikely.
Okay, so we can rule her out.
I mean, again, I couldn't rule anything out, but certainly I think it's unlikely.
So it's possible.
Again, anything's possible.
Okay, so we,
That's what I said. I said
All right.
unlikely, but
okay,
if we,
understood. How about Mr. Cahill? Is he part of the conspiracy to kill Jeff German?
again, highly unlikely, but
You're not ruling it out.
without further evidence, I cannot rule it out, sir.
Valid answer.
Okay, so it's possible.
Again, anything is possible, sir.
Is Thomas Monroe, who's part of Compass Realty, I believe, is he part of this conspiracy to murder Jeff German?
Thomas More?
I apologize, Thomas Moore. Is he part of this?
I would think that would be likely, yes.
Okay, likely, okay. And Compass Realty as a business as a whole is part of this as well, to kill Mr. Dermott, correct?
Again, if you recall that the best way to take me down would be to frame me for Mr. Gurman's murder. And so, yes, I do believe that.
And I want to write that down. You said the best way to take me out is
This
to
is great.
frame you for killing German, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm paraphrasing, but essentially that's it.
Absolutely.
Okay. You would agree, and I think you told this jury extensively on direct examination, what a thorn you were inside of Compass Realty, correct?
I was, yes,
You fought them at every turn, correct?
absolutely.
You thought what they were doing was improper, correct?
I think I proved that.
Okay, you thought that so much of their wrongdoing that you actually went to the police about it, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were, till the moment that you were stopped working in that office, you fought against Compass Realty, correct?
I believe when that order was entered on August 30th, that shows that, absolutely.
And the issue for Compass Realty is because you were the public administrator, correct?
Right.
You stood in their way from doing the things that they wanted to do in terms of independent administrators, is that right?
Yes, sir. And in fact, again, that order was going to allow me to dig into them and actually prove, without a doubt, that Detective Jaffe was just ignoring criminal conduct, sir. Yes.
So here's the thing, though. You said that they did something else. They also donated somebody. Who did they donate to?
That's read.
How much money did they donate?
$10,000.
So they thought, and let me get this straight. This is, in your opinion, the things that they were doing cost in the millions. Is that right?
Absolutely.
This is $1 million scheme that they're running, correct?
Mhm.
And all they could muster to fund an opponent was 10 grand?
No, campaign laws prohibit anything over $10,000.
So did any other independent employees of Compass Realty shell out money for Rita?
So there's, again, Adam Fenn and also
How
Compass
much?
Realty,
How much?
$5,000 each. And so, that's all that they needed in order to.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you have described yourself as the sole impediment for their multi-million-dollar scheme, and the only thing that they could come up with financially to stop you is just $10,000?
No, sir.
Okay. That's your C&Es that you submitted. That's all we have, right? It's like 10 grand.
That's 10 grand on our campaign contribution report.
Right,
That
that-
is not all the money that they've given to anybody to engage in this
Are you
activity.
speculating at this point?
Have you got the man?
Okay, please finish the question.
Again, without being able to firsthand investigate, because Mr. Gman was murdered and I had been arrested and been sitting in jail for 2 years, perhaps I'm speculating, but if I'd had that authority like I'd intended, I would have uncovered the various different ways that they actually tried to, thwart me. All the attorney fees that they paid in order to pay these attorneys who would, again, this was an escalating situation that
Right.
started basically, well, go on.
I mean, I think we're a little far afield of my question at this
Sure,
point.
okay.
I don't know that was as responsive to my question. So let me direct you back to it. You would agree like $10,000 is really not that much money. In the world of countywide races, 10 grand, not that much, correct?
In the world of county races, it's the maximum contributions for these two guys or these two entities. But
Those two guys, but listen, if we're talking about, like, you know how politics works. If there are businesses or special interests, they pool their money together behind a candidate, right? You don't know that, but you were.
it depends on
running for
the
political office, you don't know
situation.
that?
It depends on the situation.
Run over each other.
Sir, are you going to sit here and tell this jury you've run for political office twice and you don't know that businesses or special interests pool their money together to back a candidate they really want? Are you really telling them that?
And again, I don't have firsthand knowledge of that because I've never had that happen for me.
Right.
Now, if you're talking about political action committees, I don't know, what do you, PACs?
Look, the bottom line is, all they donated was 10 grand, correct?
I think that's a mischaracterization of what
Fine,
they've done.
let's move on.
Yeah, he needed to move on from that. I really like everything he's doing, but don't get into the mud with this guy. But one thing that I wanted to point out that I really love that he does is he keeps on saying, "Are you telling this jury?" And I love that in court to bring it back to you are standing up here in front of this jury. You want to tell this jury X, Y, and Z. Is that what you're doing? You're standing here and telling this jury because it really, it's not just for the sake of emphasis, but it brings it home to the jury should be taking this personally to some extent, that this guy is literally standing here and wants you fine folks to believe this absolute nonsense, that the point that he can't even concede on the smallest of points is just remarkable to me. And, it's a slog to get through all of this because of who this person is, but he's doing a great job, but it's hard. And I understand it not to get down into the dirt with this man on some of these smaller issues.
And here's the crazy part. They won, right?
And I still kept fighting them, yes.
No, sir, you were a lame duck as of September 2nd, 2022. Isn't that right?
But I still continue to fight Compass Realty.
That's not my question. You're out of a job in that you're not an impediment as of January 1st. Isn't that right?
As of January 1st, but I was right then.
So you're trying to tell us that Compass Realty was so upset with you that they backed a candidate who wins, but then they just can't wait any longer, so they murder a reporter? They can't wait for 3 months?
I would recommend that the jury watch the video and again, see the time at which the order was filed. And I think you might agree that, yes, that is absolutely the case, sir.
So the answer to my question is yes. That Compass Realty, even though they successfully backed a candidate that defeated you in a primary, they couldn't wait another 3 months for you to leave office, correct?
Because I've got the authority to really crack things open
So
right
you're-
then.
So
Again,
Wow.
Answering the question, these are fairly complex questions. They require complex answers.
Sure that each of you lets the other.
Sir, are you finished?
I am now, sir.
Okay, so then my next question is this. If they hated you so much,
I don't think they know me to hate me, but sure.
well, I mean, they're willing to kill people over you, right?
I guess they would have hated me, yeah.
Right. And if they hated you so much, why didn't they just kill you?
That's a really good question, and I would like to answer it.
I'm so glad he said that. I'm so glad he said that. And I know this bald-headed freak is going to try to get his answer in, but that is really the question that the jurors want to know. If they were so, I mean, he's doing a remarkable job of revealing how just insane this theory is, but that is really the whole question. If they were so evil and nefarious and wanted this man gone so bad that they were willing to commit murder, why not just murder the person that you're mad about? Thank you, sir. Thank you for asking the question I've been waiting for.
Belief as to why they did.
Please tell me why they didn't just bother killing you.
Because if they killed me, would that have stopped the Nevada State Division from investigating them? No. If they killed me, would anybody have felt the duty to continue my work because I was actually doing this? I think so. So murdering me would have not discredited me. It would not have put me in a position where all the work that I was doing just got left by the wayside. It would make no sense to kill me.
So your theory is that Jeff Gman is collateral damage?
When you've taken into account the fact that months earlier we had this public feud, it's a pretty convenient way to do this.
So the guy who writes the articles that ends your career, they reward him by killing him?
Well, again, like I said, it was a pretty good way to do this.
And let's not get it twisted. Rita and Alicia are part of the conspiracy that looped in Jeff Gman, and they're in cahoots with Compass. So they're like, you know what? Thanks, Jeff, but you got to go. That's what you're suggesting?
And like I said, I don't know that they knew about that particular aspect of the conspiracy, sir.
Okay.
I mean, I would certainly think that they wouldn't, because you're right. I can't imagine that they would know and be okay with that, sir.
Isn't it also true that Roberta testified that once you lost, Rita Reed was actually reversing the things that you did in the office, right?
That would be her prerogative at that point.
Okay. So changes were even afoot before you had even left office, correct?
Sure.
And you even told us that once Rita took over, nothing came of the things that you wanted to, like none of the things that you wanted to investigate were ever done, right?
I was talking about the fact that I had this investigative authority against Compass Realty that I had just gotten just a few days before Mr. Gurm was murdered, and she never picked up that torch and ran with it. And it's clear why she didn't, because Compass Realty gave her that money, despite the fact that, as you saw, sir, she, at these homes, theft,
So
sir.
the answer to my question is yes. Rita Reed never followed through with the things that the authority that you had, correct?
Regarding Compass Realty, yes, sir.
Thank you. And just to be clear, she was going to have full authority as of January, right?
Yes, sir.
And the authority could have gotten Compass in trouble, but that risk was eliminated once they put Rita in, according to your theory, right?
Once she actually became the public administrator, that would be the case. But while I was still, as you call it, a lame duck, I was still coming after them, sir.
Okay, so your thought is murder was the only way.
There might have been other ways, but it was again, if they didn't do it, they sure had a windfall for it that they didn't expect.
So how did Compass break into your home to plant this evidence?
Like I said before, I don't know how it got in there, but I did not put
How
it
did
there,
they
sir.
plant the hat?
And I don't know how it got there, but I didn't put it there.
How did they plant the shoes?
I don't know how it got under the couch, but I did not put it there.
How did they get your DNA in there?
Again, I don't know when and where that DNA was allegedly obtained, so I couldn't say, sir.
How did they put the images in your phone?
Again, I don't know if that was in my phone or on a corrupt image or what have you. Again, you cannot say when or where any of this occurred, really.
And again, when they executed this warrant, the police, they did that also in the presence of your wife, correct?
Not exactly, sir, if I may. So
The answer to my question is no?
not all of them did.
Okay.
And so,
No question pending. I appreciate it. You'll have a chance on redirect.
Okay.
So let's start focusing on May of 2012 or May of 2022. Sorry about that. Fair to say that the dynamics in the office aren't great at that point.
that's correct, sir.
Rita and the old guard are unhappy with you and the new guard. Would that be correct?
Yeah, sure.
And the members of the new guard included you, Roberta, and Nicole. Would that be accurate?
That was just some of us.
Okay. There were a couple others.
I believe there were actually 10 folks, and after Janie retired, it was just 4 old guards, so as has been stated. So 6 of us who are, and that didn't include me either. So I guess it'd be 7 of us versus the 4 people who had gotten there before I did.
Okay. So you agreed to do a sit-down interview on May 11th of 2022 with Jeff Gman, correct?
Yes, sir.
Why did you agree to do this interview?
Because I wanted to dispel the notion that there was any concern.
You were being accused of a series of things, including creating emotional stress on your employees, correct?
Right.
Bullying?
Right.
And engaging in an inappropriate relationship, correct?
Right.
Okay. When you sat down to do this interview, did you want to get the truth out?
To a certain extent, yes, but when it came to the office issues, yes, sir.
Okay. When you sat down, when you spoke with him, were you truthful in your interview?
Not entirely, no.
Okay. What were you untruthful about?
About the extent of the relationship with me and Roberta Lee Kennett.
Okay. What
Oh,
was
boy.
different? What did you say versus the truth?
I said that, she and I had no affair, but, regrettably, we did have, and when I say regrettably, I think we both regret the mistake, but we had a romantic affair with each other.
Okay. So you did lie to him, correct, on that topic?
I didn't think that was the public's business.
That's not my question. My question
Yes,
is,
I did lie regarding that particular issue, yes.
now, you would agree with me, at the moment you sat down for that interview, you were in the throngs of a re-election campaign, correct?
Yes, sir.
You'd agree with me that the public administration job was something very important to you.
I mean, sure. Yes. Obviously, again, it was important at the time. Yes.
I mean,
Was your
listen,
life,
you
dude.
told us a little bit about your story. I mean, right? I mean, you put yourself through law school, you opened up a law firm, you were elected to this job. You were proud of the work you were doing at the PA's office, correct?
Yeah, absolutely was.
Okay, and you wanted to remain in that job, correct?
I certainly did.
And you would agree with me that if you had been entirely truthful, that may not have helped your election prospects. Would that be correct?
That was certainly not the sole motivation for lying.
And I understand that, but that is a factor, correct?
I don't know. Again, I don't know that I necessarily consider that to be the primary factor, or honestly consider it to be a factor at all. My main concern was having any embarrassment or any, for both of our families, that kind of thing.
And listen, that's totally fair, right? You're concerned about your family, maybe you're concerned about Roberta's family. Understood. And that for you is the main reason why you're not being truthful about that.
Right.
Okay. So you sit down. Did you feel after speaking with him that you thought Gman would give you a fair shake?
I did. I thought we had a pretty good conversation. I walked outside with him. I told him more about a lot of the issues that occurred at the office before I got there, and about the way that, the strange things that had happened. That I won't get into it, but yes, I thought by the time we were done that, that he understood what was really going on at the office.
Okay. And when he, sorry, excuse me 1 second. When that was published, you were very upset, correct?
Yeah, I was shocked at what ended up coming out versus what we had discussed. Yes, sir.
See, that interview has always been a thing to me that I talk about, because it displays the kind of personality that you're seeing here in its final manifestation right now. Is that the type of person who's accused of all of these awful things in their professional capacity, the type of person that says, I want to sit down with that reporter, is the person who believes that they can talk themselves out of anything, and that they're smarter than everyone. And if just given the opportunity to explain themselves, they'll show everyone how much stupider they are than him. And that's why he took advantage of that. By all rights, that was the stupidest thing he could have done as a politician. But he's so full of his own ego that he wants to sit down and have that moment to be heard again. Anytime he's given an opportunity to be heard, he's going to take full advantage of it. That person, mix that all together, and that's exactly the person that you get here right now. Now, Gman didn't have the opportunity to cross-examine him like this, and that's why it's all falling apart. But that's exactly why I fully believe he feels that he was knocking it out of the park with the jurors, and still thinks he can pull it off.
Were you devastated?
I don't know if never, consider myself devastated on anything. I was certainly upset. I was, hurt for, that this came out, but that was that day.
Sure. And on that day, and let's just be clear, because not only does it potentially jeopardize your work, but it jeopardizes potentially the family stability. Fair?
In a sense, yes. My wife did forgive me, but it certainly it wasn't good optically for obviously my children, and have them teased by other kids or what have you. So from that respect, it was a little hard on them.
And here's the thing: he didn't have to write it the way he did, but he chose to do so. Correct?
Certainly, yes.
And you talked to him about how upset you were when you saw, I'm assuming an advanced copy of it, or at least before.
No, I believe it was actually after it was released. I think people have been misstating the date of the article because I think my text was after. I don't know if it got republished and the date changed or what have you.
Yeah, so, and like if we publish 353A, we can see here, the date on this is May 16th, correct? Okay. But you agree sometimes what happens is like the RJ will throw up an article online at night, and so maybe it's the night before, and then maybe in a publication it's for the next day, something along those lines. Okay, so because your text messages with Mr. Gman reacting to this actually happened on the 15th, isn't that right?
Right, sir.
Okay.
Right.
So I want to talk about that if we could. If we could cue over. Now on direct, you said it was a bummer, right? Or was that the election loss? I can't remember. I don't. Which was
I think and maybe I can't remember what was a bummer per se. The articles certainly were not. I wasn't happy about them. Yeah.
Well, let's turn to this message. It's on page 4, and you state, "I don't know what to say. I told you about how much this has all impacted me. You heard from employees who were being harassed by these people. Provided you proof," I'm assuming that's proof, correct? It says prove, it's a typo.
It might have auto-corrected and yeah.
Understood.
Yeah.
"Provided you proof that I was doing my best to actually smooth things over after I had to make hard decisions. Still, you wrote an article that makes me sound like I'm the guilty one. That was not fair or balanced," correct?
Yes, sir, I wrote that.
You were very, very upset when you wrote that.
Yeah, and I guess it says I'm very distraught right now. Clearly, there are typos in my message.
And you held him responsible because he was the one who chose to write the words, correct?
Again, at the time, I was upset.
So the answer to my question is yes, you held Mr. Gman responsible because he chose to write this article in this particular way.
If I had to hold anyone responsible in any sense, I guess the context that you're saying, I mean, certainly not enough to murder him.
That wasn't my question.
Okay, I guess I'm trying to get a sense of what the wordplay is here.
Well, it's not wordplay. You held him responsible. He chose to write it that particular way, right?
On that day, I felt that, again, he would totally misconstrue things. So I was upset with him, and I told him I was upset with him.
Okay, so that's how you were feeling on May 15th, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you even say, I've done so much for that office. I told you I've been followed, and that I caught Rita following me. You decided to take it on her word that she wasn't, however clearly she was. It seems to me you valued sensationalism or the value of a potential takedown than actually telling the truth. Thank you for helping him drop more pressure on my life.
Yeah, and I think that was a typo with the him. It was probably a them instead.
Understood.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you described this probably as a hit piece. Would that be correct?
Honestly, yes.
A character assassination, correct?
Yes.
And he's the one who chose it to write it that way.
Well,
correct?
well chosen
Correct.
words. Hit piece, character assassination. Can you imagine how this guy behaves when the cops pull him over? Sir, were you speeding? I don't know
And then what happens is,
if speed is something that can be
about 9 days go
accurately
by.
recorded.
and he reaches out to you again,
Mhm.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, the primary election was held on June 14th, correct?
I don't recall, but you're probably right.
Okay, so we have one article that gets into not just the inner workings of the office, but is hitting you on personal stuff. And now he's reaching out to try to do another article, right?
Right, sir.
Fair to say, you've got to be upset.
I don't know if at this point I was still upset. I couldn't remember. I know that I had to, at a certain point, start to try to, basically combat this with my own narrative to try to, again, win the race.
Right. You're so concerned about Jeff Garman's articles that you start literally creating websites to try to fight against it, correct?
I wanted the truth to come, yeah.
Right. That's how significant the article was to you.
In the sense that I wanted to win the race and I needed to dispel what was in the articles, yes, sir.
You must have felt that this guy is just personally out to get you at this point.
Not personally out to get me. I thought he was a friend of John Cahill's.
Okay.
Later, I found out that Alicia Goodwin's father was a friend of his.
That must have been infuriating.
I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, by the time, about a month later, I think you see my tweets. I'm more just trying to.
Sure as.
Well, we'll talk about different things over time that we see from you. But moving on, you end up providing a written statement, correct?
Yes, sir.
I imagine you're hopeful that you're going to get more of a balanced article from him, correct?
No, sir.
Okay, you're just hoping he'll just publish something, correct?
I'm just hoping that it wouldn't be too bad because I'd already figured by this point, it's like, well, he's going to do what he's going to do.
But it was pretty bad, wasn't it?
Again, that's,
It's the same stuff, right? He's trashing you, correct?
but there's a certain point which you kind of get desensitized to things.
Sure,
Right. So by the time the fourth article came out, I was like, oh, whatever. Right. I will say that when it comes,
My objection, he's answering the
You
question.
guys, both of you got red.
I know, but sir, the witness is not responsive to the question.
He's answering the question that's posed, and it's a complex
I'm
question.
asking him to ask the question again.
you're upset because he's trashing you, correct?
Yeah, I couldn't say at that time that I was still upset or just trying to fight to win the race.
This was not helping your election, was it?
No, that certainly wasn't.
So then we have, let's do this, let me back out.
And
Hold on a second. I'd like to now turn to some items that pop up in your phone kind of around this time. So there is this image from May 20th. I'm going to publish that. This was found in your phone, correct?
yes, it was, sir.
You're not denying that this was something actually in your phone.
No, and I can tell you why I did.
I'm not asking you that question, but the title of this is How to Push Down Negative Search Results, correct? Correct?
Oh, I'm taking notes. Watch out.
We have these kind of inflammatory tweets that you're tracking where they're talking about you, correct?
I was not tracking these. These were given to me by Roberta Lee Kennett.
Okay, so people are
Roberta.
sending them to you, right?
Yes.
And then you have this message here to Mr. Kinsley. And just to be clear, that is a message that is being kind of issued out on the 15th, which would have been like that day that article came out, right? Is that correct? Because
Yeah,
you had
sure.
because the article was dated, the original one's dated 5/16, and we had that conversation about it released earlier, right?
Right.
Okay. So let's look and see what you say here. Isn't it true you tell Mr. Kingsley, I'm working to bring the full truth to light? I guess I want to focus on, you're kind of maintaining the same posture that you had with Gehrman, right? About these things, some things are true, none of the stuff is true, right?
Well, and again, like I said, I'll point out that I did lie in this message because I did not want to publicly embarrass my family further.
Right.
Right.
And to be fair, it's understandable, but so this is something that the potential impact on your family is so significant. You're even telling people in this context, like it's not true because that's an important thing to protect. Fair?
I don't think that my wife would have left me, but certainly I didn't want them to have to go through any embarrassment or any pain.
Sure. And I want to focus down here at the very bottom because I know you said, I was kind of over it and things like that. Isn't it true you state here you have no idea how hard it's been? You say that, correct?
That was that same day, and that was referring to the troubles that I had with the ladies in the office, that no matter what I was doing to try to actually make peace with them, giving them raises, whatever things that still, again, I had to be a cheerleader for the other employees while trying to minimize the damage they were doing.
Okay. You say I'm truly devastated, correct?
And that was again on the same day that I texted Mr. Gman.
So the answer is yes.
Yep. And
Out to county officials to see if there's anything that they can do to help rein in Rita Reed's behavior.
that I don't recall. I mean, if you got something to show that, as long as,
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. So
Oh,
let's-
I did talk to HR about how to best handle disciplinary issues and got their advice and did things appropriately.
Okay.
If that's what you're referring to.
I'm just asking. And so now that brings us to the primary, which is June 14th of 2022. You would agree with me when that day began, you were hopeful that you were going to win, correct?
You're always hopeful when you're running for an election.
You had gone out, you had canvassed neighborhoods, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were expressing to your friends and family that, I think we're going to pull this off, correct?
Obviously, you always want to have an optimistic face no matter what, but I wasn't 100% sure that I was going to win or not.
Okay. But ultimately, you lose. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you don't place second. You end up placing third. Is that right?
All three of us were pretty tight, though, but yes.
Right. And I'm going to approach with what's been marked as state's proposed 377.
You wanted
Does that
that.
appear to be kind of the accurate outcome of the election?
Oh, this is great.
Okay, and that's a fair and accurate depiction of those results.
I think so. Like I said, it was pretty close.
At this time, we're asking state permission to admit states.
You came in third,
Sure, sorry
right?
about that.
There's no objection.
Publishing 377, you can cue over. So when we look at this, you don't lose by much, do you?
No.
I mean, what, a little more than 2,000 votes, correct?
Right.
Jeff Gehrman didn't write any articles about Carolyn Escobar in a negative fashion, did he?
I wouldn't think so.
I mean, leading up to his election, he didn't do that, correct?
Correct.
He didn't do that about Rita.
No.
Fair to say, in your opinion, if Jeff Gehrman hadn't written these articles, you probably end up winning that primary.
Probably yes.
Wow. So You might have been
Had to be
pretty
crushing.
upset with him.
Correct?
No, it was disappointing, but again, I knew that my chances were 50-50, so I was prepared for a loss. And I think my conciliation post on Facebook was pretty clear that, hey, you know what? We tried really hard. We gave it our go. But, you know, I'm going to go serve families as a probate attorney again. I'm ready to go back to work. And, you know, and I got a lot of support when I made that post.
Okay. But everything that you work for is gone because of a couple of articles that say things that you don't think are really true, correct? Especially about the work stuff, right?
It wasn't the articles per se. It was obviously Rita and Alicia.
Who got Jeff Gman into the fold to publicly tear you down.
They did, yes.
And he agreed to do it.
Yeah.
So now I want to focus on just 2 days later. 2 days later. Oh, can we cue over? Sorry. 2 days later, Jeff Gman writes to you, correct?
Mm-hmm.
At this point, you are kind of right on teetering on the verge of like conceding, correct?
I think it took a long time for the count to occur. It was like almost a week. So we were, again, this is a while back. So if I remember correctly, we were still waiting for the final outcome. And yeah, so this was.
So you're down as of May 16th. You're losing in the race, correct?
It was kind of like similar to what you saw on that report in the sense that things kept going up and down. But you know, it was I think if I'm not mistaken, it was somewhere in those 1,000, 2,000 between the three of us. But Rita would go up, then Caroline would go up, and so it was more of a tug of war between them. And that was pretty much
so it's
in third place at all times.
So it's very close, right?
It was really close.
You don't know how this at this point, as of June 16th, you still don't officially know how this one's going to shake out, correct?
Based on the fact that I never came out of third place during the whole thing, I was pretty sure that it was done.
Okay, but nevertheless, Jeff Gman comes calling again, correct?
Mm-hmm. And it's about that truth website that I created.
Right, and you just say it's fine at this point. They won. Do what you like.
Mm-hmm.
Fair to say you felt resigned at this point.
Yeah, like just what's it going to do at this point? Whatever,
Well, he wrote another one, correct?
Mm-hmm. That is, yes.
Fair to say you weren't happy with that coverage. It wasn't positive, was it?
Again, I don't remember if I cared or not. And I know I started to poke fun at him on Twitter, but it came to a point where it was just me trying to, I think, see if I couldn't get him to put more light on my website.
Okay. And so then on June 18th, he publishes this article number 3, correct?
Mm-hmm. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Yes.
And then just 6 days later, on June 22nd, he publishes a 4th article about you officially losing, but pointing out that you remain combative, correct?
Yeah, which again was inaccurate, but sure. Yes.
Okay, so again, it's inaccurate reporting about you, the 4th one.
Right. And like I said, by this point, I was just having fun with it.
Well, let's be, Mr. Tejas, you didn't like Jeff Gman by this point, did you?
I mean, sure. I did not like him.
You hated him, isn't that correct?
And I don't know if hate,
Hate's not in my heart.
Points throughout that where I might have felt like that, but I don't know that he was not a central figure in my life. I'll put it that way.
He is the figure that ends up causing you to leave your job as public administrator for Clark County, correct?
Again, I don't blame him per se. I blame Rita and I blame Alicia.
Sir, you just told this jury that if those articles weren't written, hold on, I'm not finished. You just told this jury, like 5 minutes ago, that if Mr. Gman hadn't written these 4 articles, you believe you would have won the race.
Yeah. But again, if Rita and Alicia hadn't gone to Alicia's dad to ask for this favor, those articles wouldn't have happened.
So the answer to my question is yes.
Who I would hold most responsible is not Mr. Gman.
Sir, that's not my question.
Okay.
My question is, you believe if Mr. Gman had not written these 4 articles, you would have won the race, correct?
I do believe that, yes.
You hated him by this point in time, isn't that right?
I could not say whether I hated him by this point in time, and if how long I might have hated him. If
Roberta said you hated him.
Roberta is entitled to her own opinion. I don't know that I ever said I hated him.
Okay. So now we're in July. Fair to say, working in that office had to have been hard in July.
So after the election loss, I ended up. So I guess back up a little bit. When Mike Murphy came into the office, it was not a directive from Clark County. It was a request. Jeff Wells said, hey, you've got this situation. I think, maybe if we bring in Mr. Murphy, he could help you kind of be an independent, arbiter of sorts. And he said that, you don't have to say yes. This is not, we have no right to force this on you. It's entirely up to you. And I said, what, sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. So brought him in. But then again, that got misconstrued, it is what it is at this point. But so once I lost the election, he and Rita had taken over the duties primarily. And I did, most of my work from home, coming in a couple of days a week, just to, do things here and there.
Okay, so to go back to my question, was July hard? Yes or no?
I guess my answer would be not as, I didn't have to deal with the first, the day-to-day frustrations I used to.
It's amazing to me how this man cannot answer even the simplest of questions with a yes or no. And it goes beyond just him trying to be evasive. And I think it just entirely has to do with almost this gaslighting that he's trying to, it's like, well, you're not asking me the proper questions. Your questions aren't precise enough, and I'm giving you precise answers. And that's why you're having such difficulty, because you're not really asking yes or no questions. It's amazing. I'm sitting here thinking, like, he's doing so awful. We can all agree. But is there a way that with these facts, anyone could do any better? And I think I'm at the conclusion that, yeah, I mean, he's just on top of the awful facts, on top of all of the evidence pointing at him. He's just really bad at this. He's just so blinded by his own narcissism that he cannot even get through what should be easy stuff without making it worse for him. And the more that he does this, the more obstreperous he is, the more difficult he is. He's not scoring points with the jury, but he doesn't care, because he would rather be right than be innocent. Does that kind of make sense? It's like he wants to win this battle of wits with the prosecutor so badly that he doesn't care if that burns the entire ship. He's just, and that's the sign of a narcissist. Every answer has to paint him as a good person, underdog, or a straight up victim. Agreed. Entirely agreed, Afton. He's so obsessed with this idea of him being a victim, him being, a good person, the underdog. You got it. You nailed it on every single point. He's so obsessed with that he would rather come off as completely evasive than to even concede the smallest of points. Even the idea of, were you upset that you lost? He can't answer yes or no. Think of how more convincing he might be if he would just answer some of these questions honestly, because really, you can be a person who is very upset at this man. You can be a person who blames this man for your election loss. You can be all of those things and still not be a murderer. And he could still cling to his idea that he didn't commit this murder, but he can't even concede those small things. He thinks logically in the clear. Yeah, I think you're right. I think he thinks that he's still winning this, like he probably thought with the election. We saw how that all turned out for him.
To deal with when I was in the office 50 hours a week.
So you came in less, correct?
Yes,
Rita assumed more of a responsibility,
right, sir.
even though you were still the acting, duly elected public administrator.
Right. We decided, just.
I'm going to publish Exhibit 340. We can cue over to the Elmo. On June 13th, I don't know if you are aware of this back in the day, but an email is sent out. I'm sorry, July. Sorry about that. July 13th of 2022, Jeff Garriman is making a public records request, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, in July, you have already lost a race, correct?
Right.
So the election isn't at stake. Is that correct?
Right. Correct.
You will be gone in a matter of 6 months, right?
Right.
And now, Jeff Garriman is asking for all emails between Public Administrator Robert Tellis and the State Coordinator Roberta Lee Kennett from January 1st to the date that this is fulfilled, correct?
Right.
He also wanted all of your communications, including messages between you and Roberta, correct?
Right.
He wanted you to provide, wanted the county to provide all text messages between you and Roberta, correct?
Right.
From your personal cell phones, correct?
Yes, he did, but he was not allowed to have them. But yes.
Sure. Understood. But that's how far this is going. And additionally, and I didn't read that in the middle, it included a request for Microsoft Teams messages as well. Isn't that right?
Right.
Okay. Now, sir, you are familiar with the county's policy.
That's
Well,
that's
let's
the
put it this way.
brother,
You
right?
testified to this jury that, before the records request went out for the team's messages, you had reviewed them and you didn't have any issues with them, correct?
And I'd love to elaborate on that if I could.
No, I need you to focus on my question. Yes or no? You
I
told-
had an
sir,
opportunity to, yes,
sir,
I did have an opportunity to review them
so-
before.
Judge, it's a two-way street on this one.
Okay, if you can answer the question, yes or no.
I
you
haven't
can tell
finished
me
the
if you
question
can't,
yet.
Oh,
Then I can ask Mr.
Oh.
Hamner if he wants you to answer the question.
I need you to listen. I need to finish the question.
I thought you were done. Sorry.
Well, yes or no? You testified on direct examination that you reviewed team's messages and you did not have an issue with them, correct?
The production that I understood was going to be sent to Mr. Gman, yes.
And just to be clear, you were familiar with the county's policy about what gets produced in a public records request, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so isn't it true that under this county policy, personal messages would not be produced under a public records request?
That is correct.
Okay, so any personal communications between you and her wouldn't go out to Mr. Gehrman, correct?
That is absolutely correct.
And that is why, and so you're like, I don't have any issue with that other stuff going on, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
This is
But let's
that
be
issue
clear
they
about
were
something.
arguing about.
the election's over, right?
Mhm.
And Jeff Gehrman,
Yes, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
seems to still be digging about you and Roberta, isn't that right?
Yes, but there's nothing to dig, provided obviously that
Well-
if he was going to receive what I saw, then there was nothing for him to dig.
I mean, you'd agree, reporters typically don't ask for records requests unless they're planning on doing a story, correct?
Sometimes I think they're just fishing to see if there is a story.
And according to this records request, he's fishing about one thing, it's you and Roberta, right?
Right.
Okay. Which you told us back in May, when you sat down with your interview with Jeff Gehrman, the number one priority was to, protect your family and not really dig into that, correct? Or
Not
at
really
least
digging into
disclose
it.
that, correct?
I'm sorry.
You told us when you met with Gehrman on May 11th, you had said, I was truthful about some things, but I wasn't truthful about everything. The one thing I didn't want to talk about was the indiscretions. And you said that the reason for that was I was really concerned about my family, correct? Okay. The election's over. You're on your way out. And now this guy is wanting to ask more questions about you and Roberta, right?
Yep.
It's not about you and Rita, right?
There's a. I know there was a
Hey.
later request for those other emails that got appended to this, but I don't know if you remember that with
But
Mike
just in
Murphy
this
and Rita.
just in this specific request, he's not asking for communications between you and Rita, right?
Correct.
He's not asking for communications between you and Alicia, right?
Correct.
It's just about you and Roberta.
Right.
He's not leaving it alone, is he?
I think he's still fishing.
That had to have been frustrating, Mr. Tellis.
No, it was not, because I knew he wasn't going to have anything based on what I reviewed from the production.
Okay. So it's your testimony that the possibility of a fifth article didn't concern you at all when the potential source of the request is just about your communications between you and Roberta. You're telling us that's not a concern at this point in time.
Again, so I can explain to you how things,
Yes or no? Is it a concern or is it not?
not at the time that I reviewed those documents.
Okay. So now let's now jump forward to August 8th of 2022. On that day, Dan Cooling emails you and starts to tell you about the production request, that it's going to start to happen, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's on August 8th, right?
Yes, sir.
I'll do this quickly here. August 8th. 4 days later, in your phone, the Google Maps and bronze circles start popping up, correct?
No, sir.
Read this out to me. What does that say?
That says August 12th, 2022.
Publishing 364. This is the street surveillance. Please read out to me what the date is on that.
August 15th, 2022.
Okay. You would agree that August 12th is just 4 days after August 8th, correct?
I would.
You would agree with me that August 15th is just 7 days after August 8th, correct?
I would.
And if we go back to the overhead, 354. I want you to read the date on entry number 1 on that.
The modified date?
Yeah.
8/23.
Okay.
2022.
I wish I could do the math on that one. I feel like that's like about 2 weeks after August 8th, correct?
Somewhere on there.
We also heard from Nicole Lofton, correct?
Yes, sir.
Nicole Lofton was employee of the public administrator's office, correct?
Yes, sir.
A member, as you describe it, of the New Guard, correct?
Um,
She was
yes.
on Team Tellus, fair?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. You had text messages between you and Nicole Lofton through the course of your time as a public administrator, correct?
If you've got them, then sure. I don't recall.
Okay, well, I'm going to approach for a second. So I'm going to show opposing counsel what's been marked as Exhibit 376. Just an excerpt of some things, but take a look.
These are just excerpts, they're not the entire.
It's not the full thing. There's a lot of messages there. I just wanted to kind of narrow down. I'm going to approach in a minute, but I need to get an understanding. By August, beginning of August 8th, by August 8th, how are you feeling about Jeff Garman's next upcoming article?
I don't recall.
Are you concerned at all?
I don't recall.
Okay. Well, let me show you what's been marked as Exhibit 376, proposed Exhibit 376. Why don't you just take a minute and flip through those and let me know if you recognize essentially what you're looking at there.
It could be a good time for a break as well.
Yeah.
Sure, we can do that. That's fine.
All right, this time we're going to take a break during this recess. I'm admonished not to discuss or communicate with anyone, including
God bless. Wow. That was, first of all, that was just long period of time to let the jurors sit through all of that, and the court reporter and everybody else just to have to endure that whole mess. But I mean, you know, I'm not going to be adding any great commentary to whether or not this cross is going well for the prosecution. I mean, I think that's fairly obvious that he's just at this point, you know, toying with him. But I will say, I think it's remarkable the prosecutor's endurance too. I mean, he really is not letting him get away with anything. There's no wiggle room that he's giving him. There's no ability to squirm his way out of anything that he's going to allow him to have. Even on some of these smaller points, and I'm sitting here going, you know, thinking to myself sometimes, let it go, dude. You know, like you've won. He's already dead. Stop beating him. But I think it's about something even maybe more than this. He's not going to let him get away with this. He's not going to let this man who murdered someone over his own ego then stand there and tell these jurors this story without nailing him to the wall on every single issue. And so to that extent, I applaud it. I applaud that he is being so thorough. I did not think this would be as thorough a cross-examination. Like I said, this cross-examination ended about an hour ago as far as whether or not who is the victor here. But he is going to just pin him to the wall on every single point because he deserves it. I think that's really what it is. This has become about punishment almost. I mean, he's just going to let him have it. Jocelyn says, I know I already asked, but will they call any other witnesses after this to try to... I don't think so. I don't think they've announced any. I think their full intention was to end this with this witness, and really anything that they do after this point, there's no bringing this back from where it's at. There's no redeeming this. This is over. This is done. This is cooked to an absolute crisp. he's going to probably do some redirect, and I doubt there will be a juror who even brings a pen with them to hear that. That is Jeff's brother. That's very interesting. He's been sitting there. You know what? He's doing this for him too. The prosecutor's doing this cross-examination for Jeff's brother as well. That family's sitting there and they had to listen to his nonsense. He's going to let them have it on every single thing. All right, we're going to be able to skip through. We are getting towards the end. Thank God. Not that I'm not enjoying every minute of this, but I just don't want to have to listen to this guy any longer. Let me get this queued up. Here we go. There he stands. Still doesn't know how to tie a tie properly. Yeah, he did waste everybody's time. He wasted everybody's time. I fully agree that everybody has a right to have their trial if they want it. But this was just an ego trip. This was just, this guy's last hurrah having a captive audience.
Mr. Crafton?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you. Sir, you had a chance to review those text messages?
Yes, sir.
That's a fair and accurate picture of some of the text messages you had with Nicole.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
At this time, we ask that these be admitted, state post 376.
No objection.
So again, just to set the stage, like how are you feeling in early August about Jeff German and his articles?
Like I said, I don't know that I thought any way about Jeff Gman in particular.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right. So we're publishing these. Zoom in. So that's just the ones in green. That's you, correct?
Yes.
That's just the first page. It goes back to August 17th of 2021. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. So this message is from June 15th. That's the day of the primary. It is the day after the primary, correct?
Yes, sir.
I think you state, is it true you state that her good morning, full results aren't in yet? It's about a three-way tie with me, last by around 2,000 votes. The precincts I'm counting on aren't in yet. And Nicole says, praying, right?
Mhm.
And you say, me too.
Yes.
Turning to what's marked as page 64, which is on the actual pagination. We look at this bottom email, 6:15 at 12 o'clock p.m. She writes to you, folks are prancing around like you conceded. Did you? Do you remember her writing that to you?
Not until I see it now, but it's been a while.
Okay. And then your response is, it seems sure your response was, no, I'll check the website to see if a winner was declared. And she responds, okay, correct?
Yes.
I think you indicate that if I lost, I will protect you until you can get a new position. Is that
Yes.
right? And she responds, I appreciate that. Is that correct?
Yes.
It isn't true, then you say, I'm so sorry, Nicole, I tried so hard, I almost made a comeback, but it's done, correct?
Right.
And that's at 3:16 p.m. on the 15th, isn't that right?
Right.
And you say here, unfortunately, too many people bought the lies, isn't that right?
Right.
And when you're saying that, you're referring to the voters, correct?
Yeah.
And the lies were propagated by those articles, correct?
Yes.
That Mr. German wrote.
Right.
You look down here at the end, she says, I'm so sorry, will you work until the end of the year or resign? Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
And she says, thank you for believing in me. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Fair to say she cared for you and how you treated her in the office, correct?
Right.
All right. And you told her, in fact, I very much believe in you. You have been my best employee. I'm so sorry that I couldn't pull it off. Isn't that correct?
Right.
And she lets you know that you fought hard. Isn't that right?
Right.
And we see here on 6:15, you even say to her, I'll stay on until the end of the year, although if they aren't messing with you, I don't know that I'll spend a ton of time in the office, correct?
Right.
Essentially ceding power to Rita Reed, correct?
Right.
And Rita Reed is friendly to Compass Realty, correct?
Right.
And so your intentions were to step away from that office or lower your profile even as early as June 15th of 2022.
Right.
So you would be less of a threat to Compass Realty even then, correct? Because you'd be stepping away and not spending a ton of time in the office.
No, sir. The evidence proves otherwise.
Okay. And then we look here at text on June 21st. Nicole says, now Alicia is in the other cubicle counting the files that were left in there. These people are so sick. They spend half the day trying to get you instead of working. The you she's referring to is yourself, correct?
I don't know if it was that or, generally saying you in that sense, like, because I don't have files in a cubicle.
Okay.
So it might have been, that perception that, I don't know how to explain that. I think you get it.
Contextually, she's talking about the old guard, correct?
She is talking about them, but as far as whether she's talking about herself or me, I don't know.
Understood. But she believes these people are sick. Is that right?
That's her opinion, and they did some pretty tough stuff.
Well, and it appears you share that same opinion. You say yes, like they think it all still matters, correct?
Right, like they're still trying to sabotage me, but it's pointless at this point, right?
Well, you say it's pointless, but we'll get to that in a second.
Sure.
You then also say she's probably trying to get fodder to pass to the reporter, correct?
Yes.
So the reporter is still on your mind, isn't that right?
Just from the standpoint that they're still trying to concoct things, and that's why I decided to stay away from the office so they couldn't concoct anything anymore.
Because the articles were damaging, correct?
They were damaging, yes.
Professionally and personally.
Primarily professionally, because obviously I had to figure out something else to do for work, which again, I'm a lawyer, so I guess, rehang my shingle if I can, do whatever I can.
And that's a really interesting point. On August 8th, we've seen how that's the day you get notified that Gman wants stuff between you and Rita, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I want to look at page, what's marked on the bottom of page 110.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it true that you tell Nicole at 12:28, you're dealing with a lot, I'm sorry, for me, this may have a long-term impact. I have people that no longer talk to me. Also, I'm worried in this digital age that the articles could potentially follow me around for years to come. I'm actually worried I might not have any good employment prospects after this, correct?
Yes.
And it just so happens that you were then informed that Gman's snooping around looking to potentially do another article, correct?
Yep.
And you're telling Nicole in confidence that you believe your future employment is jeopardized because of the articles, right?
Yes, but the damage was already done. So it's not, whether he wrote another article, he wrote 10 more articles, it was irrelevant at this point.
Well, apparently you don't say that though in your email. You don't say in that, that text message. You don't say, but the damage is already done. Do you? You don't say that in that message, correct?
Well, it says that the articles are going to have an impact, and those are, you would think that would refer to previously published articles. So I think that it's assumed that, it's done is done. So
Sir,
if he goes on and does 10 more articles, same net effect, really.
Right. Sir, to go back to my question, Isn't it true you never use the words, the damage is already done, correct?
Not in this particular message, no.
Right. And you state, also, I'm worried in this digital age that the articles could potentially follow me around for years to come. I'm actually worried I might not have any good employment prospects after this, correct?
I'd say it'd be better than if I had actually murdered Mr. Gman.
So, sir, we're going to go back to my question. Isn't that what you wrote in the text message?
Yes.
And 4 days later, Google Maps images start popping up in your phone, correct?
No.
7 days later, on the 15th, surveillance is being conducted on a street, correct?
Not by me.
And on the 23rd, multiple images of Gman's information about what car he drives and where he lives is literally being screenshotted of your desktop computer, correct?
Not by me.
Because if it was you, that would be a big problem, wouldn't it?
Conclusion, it's argumentative.
It is argumentative.
We'll move on.
Phrase it.
No, we can move on. Publishing 342.
Hey,
Then you
Bob.
receive this email on 9/1, correct?
Yes, sir.
You receive it at 5:45 p.m.,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Mhm.
And we heard from Roberta, who talked about this, right?
Right.
And she had indicated that the release of the information to Gman was just around the corner, correct?
Right.
Let me find this.
And I knew in advance that it'd be only,
Sir, there's no question pending. At 5:45 on September 1st, you get the information. You get notified that Jeff Gman is soon to receive personal records requests related to messaging and communications between you and Roberta, correct?
no, that was not personal.
Okay, I didn't mean that. I meant, I apologize for my misstatement. Communications between you and Roberta, correct?
Business related, yes.
And then at 11:20 in the morning, just a few hours later, Gman's dead, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about September 2nd, 2022. You had testified on direct that you had, your daughter had asked you a question, you responded around 8:48 in the morning, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You said at that point you then hung out at home, correct?
Mhm.
Around 10-ish, you went for a walk, correct?
Mhm.
You said you
Yes, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
you then came home, isn't that right?
Yes,
And you said that you went to the gym around 12 o'clock, 12:09,
Somewhere in there, yes.
correct? I think that's when you log in around 12:09.
that's when I checked in using my phone at Planet Fitness.
And that's the Planet Fitness that's on like Fort Apache and Charleston, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it's kind of just down that road, right? Down, what's the road? So you live on Spanish Steps,
Correct.
and then the road to kind of make your way out to Piggott, what's that one called?
South Hassan,
Okay, and then if you made a left to go by Piggott, what's that big road?
Red Hills.
Red Hills. And Red Hills can kind of get you up to that corner, right? Where the
You go
Planet
through a
Fitness is.
roundabout. You can go north from there on Apple, and then you head east to get to Planet Fitness.
Okay. And I think what you had, before we do that, let me ask you this. So what car did you take to the gym?
BMW.
All right. Oh, so it's kind of, what's the color? It's not quite gray. It's not quite brown.
I think it's brown.
A brownish color. It's kind of metallic-ish.
Right.
Okay. And you took that route that we just talked about. That's how you got to the gym. Correct?
Probably.
Okay. Oh, another question. So, and we're circling back to something, but your belief is what's Jappy's role in the conspiracy? What exactly did he do?
I'm not certain to what extent, but obviously he's the one who initiated the surveillance that was done on me that went from, I believe it was August 16th all the way through September 7th. So despite his testimony also that they only do surveillance every other day, if you look at Cynthia Sauerland, the surveillance pages from that, you see that they're done back from, one day to the next. When I requested that these surveillance logs be provided to me the first time, I received only 3.
Okay.
Then when I pointed out the fact that there was a surveillance log on September 6th that mentioned September 1, then lo and behold, now there was 4. Okay. I believe that there were actually surveillance logs for every single day, and they just weren't turned over to me. So I believe that, that Jappy knows that I didn't kill Mr. German.
Okay. So do you think it's a little strange that if Jappy wanted to frame you for murder, he would clear you of all wrongdoings with the allegations of taking bribes?
I'm already here on this charge, so I don't think he needs to worry about another charge.
And so if the job's done, why waste his time with Compass Realty?
In what sense?
Well, he testified that after you got arrested, he spent another 4 or 5 months investigating Compass Realty and then brought charges to the DA's office. Why do that?
So, and this is an interesting point, because if you look, well, I guess you can't look, but the file into me was over 100 gigabytes in information. That's quite a bit of information. The file into Compass Realty was only 3 gigabytes worth of information. It appears it was just a token investigation, because again, he didn't do the stakeouts that we discussed. He very clearly said that he believed that this personal property was leaving the homes. And it's shown in 500 pleadings that, again, there was no personal property taken from these homes, no vehicles that were actually, I'm trying to finish answering your question, sir. Okay. There were no vehicles, again, for which the titles were traced. He didn't investigate the issue with the homes being trashed ahead of time to lower their values, so they could almost double on the next sale. So, again, that's, as far as I'm concerned, when he refuses to do a legitimate investigation on me, again, I'm doing just 3 gigabytes worth of data. I think it was just a sham investigation. He didn't do any of those other things he promised he would do.
Sir, isn't it true you told us on direct examination, you bemoaned the Attorney General's office for looking at your case for like a matter of a month and then just not doing anything with it? You did say that, right?
Nope.
You never complained about the Attorney General not taking your Compass Realty allegation seriously?
I did not bemoan and I did not complain.
Okay. Did you say they didn't take it seriously?
I didn't say they didn't take it
Did you
seriously.
say that they only looked at it for like a month or 2?
They only looked at it for a month.
Just a month.
Yeah.
And Jappy looked at it for 11.
But again, he didn't do the things he promised.
Yes or no? He looked at it for 11 months.
Yes, but it was a sham investigation. It was a bogus investigation. Okay. Didn't do what he said he was going to do.
All right.
Wow.
Oh, let's talk about Zach. You like Zach, right?
I think he dislikes me more than I dislike him. I didn't really, personally, I didn't have qualms with him. He didn't waste my headspace.
Okay. And that's good to know. The disagreement that you had.
This guy doesn't have an enemy on earth, folks.
Over this Ottawa property?
I don't. No.
Okay. Because to be honest, like you did continue to do business deals with Zach after Ottawa.
Yeah.
Right?
I think what Zach was upset about.
Sir,
if I may.
So my question is yes or no? You continue to do business deals with Zach Schilling after the Ottawa sale?
Yes. Absolutely.
And now at this time, I'm going to show opposing counsel what's been marked as 388, 389, 390, 391, 392, 393, 394, 395, and 396. Sure. I'm going to show you first 390, 389, and 388. Do these look familiar to you?
Hold on just a few moments, because I want to look at where he actually changed realtors, because when I do my redirect, this is all going to become relevant.
Oh, you're going to get it, sir, when I do my redirect. Buckle up, folks. God, the fight in this guy.
So
Do you know what that is?
I do, but it doesn't say who the realtor was on this.
Well, and I would turn your attention to 388.
Okay.
Look here at the
Can I
bottom.
approach?
Sure.
Yes.
388.
Mhm.
Does that help kind of help? I mean,
Sure.
look at the address.
Of course.
We got our address here,
Right.
and that corresponds to those documents. Do these appear to be like a listing agreement, kind of an order closing the sale of certain property, a check going out to Mr. Schilling?
And yes.
And these all appear to be fair and accurate depictions of those,
And this is Ottawa.
the Ottawa
Right here.
property, yep.
And just let me write a note if I may.
Oh boy, you are going to get it when I do my redirect. I am
Okay
taking
with
notes.
this?
Obviously, we're going to receive copies of this, so.
You have,
Look at this guy. Shoot me, please. Just let me go home.
So what is the date here?
Go to the back page, the very last page, it kind of shows some dates.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll ask for submission of stage proposed 388, 389, and 390.
There's no objection.
And then I want you to take a look at 396, 395, 394, 393, 392, 391. And let me know if these appear to be listing agreements.
He's whispering to him, just stop.
Yes, they are, sir.
Okay, those are fair and accurate depictions of those agreements, correct?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Schilling?
Mhm.
Just one second. Sure.
I love how he's coming to life here with these agreements.
Thank you very much. So Ottawa was the property where you guys had some sort of disagreement about a valuation, right?
Yes, it was more a little bit of sour grapes on his end, but yeah, no, it wasn't, as far as I was concerned, a big deal.
Right. So, but when we heard kind of cross questions and testimony from Zach about there being this disagreement, Ottawa is the one that we're talking about, correct?
Ottawa was the one where he felt like he was cheated, but that wasn't the case.
Understood. And just publishing 388, this was kind of the licensing agreement to bring Zach Schilling on, correct?
Right.
And if we look here, oh, okay, it's showing up there, Zach Schilling is there. Sorry, this one was kind of cut off. 389 is a court order that establishes that the sale was approved for this Ottawa property, correct?
Yes, well, basically, it's just this is the deed after the docs have been finalized, everything's done.
Understood. And publishing 390, we'll do it backwards, but that's like a check. That
Thank you,
comes back in
Stephanie.
relation to this property, correct?
Mhm.
And the date on this is 3/22 of 2021, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So despite this disagreement, isn't it true that the public administrator's office continued to use Mr. Schilling for properties that you needed to have sold that came through the PA's office?
Yes, I never disputed that.
Okay. Well, I mean, we heard some testimony about like, oh, Zach didn't get a lot of business at Trail. I think Nicole may have said things like that, correct?
Right, and it's true that he actually had his business reduced, but I'll go into that.
Well, okay. So, but publishing 391. Oh,
Red
oh,
rum.
sorry. We're requesting that 391 through 396 be admitted to evidence.
No objection.
Thanks. So we've got here in 391 on June 8th of 2021. This is a deal with Zach, correct?
Right.
We've got another one here, 392, 612, another deal with Zach.
Right.
394, 716, another deal with Zach.
Yes, sir.
393, this is a 611, 2021 deal with Zach.
Right.
Publishing 395, 814, 2021, a deal with Zach.
Right.
Publishing 396, 10, 621, another deal with Zach.
Right.
All post-dating the big disagreement, correct?
Thank you, Ren.
Again, it was not a big disagreement, and as far as I was concerned. And the issue that he truly has with me will come later, and I can discuss that.
Okay, the bottom line is money continued to flow from the public administrator's office to Zach Schilling for the work on these houses, on these deals, correct?
Not nearly as much at a certain point, but yes,
My question is
yes.
Thanks. All right. You mentioned you're a tech guy, right? A little bit of a techie.
I think you asked that before, yes.
Play into
Are
his
you an Apple
ego.
guy or a Google person? When it comes to phones, what are you?
Well, I have a Google phone.
Okay. I want to. We've seen this timeline, right? We've seen this timeline. I'm publishing page 374. I want to turn your attention to this page. It's entries 23, 24, and 25. You covered these messages and calls from your wife on direct examination. Do you recall doing that?
Yes, sir.
I believe you had said that you were out walking around. You received this message, and then your wife called, and you just didn't want to get back to her, and that was kind of what happened with that. Is that correct?
Right, I was really close to home. I was going to walk in the door, so why? Or walk through the garage, as to say, and so why?
Right. And I think you said, "Honey, I'm home," right?
Something along those lines.
Because May was home at that time.
Right.
And that was just minutes later, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So there wasn't any concern. It was just a picture of your daughter in this call. You were just going to take care of it, right?
Right.
Okay. Nothing else?
As far as like messages and things go, or
Well, anything else you want to add to this, sir?
I don't think so.
Your wife doesn't have a Google phone, right? She have an Apple,
Yes.
and Apple's got all these crazy products. They've got what's the thing that you put on your wrist that kind of goes with your phone? What's that one called?
Some of the Apple Watch.
The Apple Watch. Does May have an Apple Watch?
She does.
Okay. Did you ever watch Steve Jobs' presentations when he would get up and say, just one more thing? You ever see him do that? And he drops like a new product or anything?
No.
Never seen that before?
Mm.
Okay. Well, let's take a look. I'm publishing three.
Now he's
website
just getting
posts.
cute. I like this.
Show this opposing counsel. This is just. May I approach the witness? Let the record reflect the showing opposing witness. 378. Stage proposed 378. Those appear to be the messages that we're looking at in that timeline, sir. Okay, and on the back of this is the very image that she sent to you. Would that be correct?
Right.
And that's a fair and accurate depiction of that thumbnail,
Mhm.
correct? And it's a fair and accurate depiction of what's up there in that timeline,
I
correct?
believe so. Yes.
Okay. At this time, we got permission to admit stage 378.
No objection.
And you talked about these. I think you told us before on cross that these messages, they weren't hacked or anything like that from the police. Like these were the messages, right?
Right.
Okay. We're now going to publish 378. So this message, if you could, please tell me what is the time. Oh, it's kind of cut up a little bit. What time is that message sent?
10:36 a.m.
Okay, on September the 2nd. Is that
Correct.
right? Then we have this other little blurb. It doesn't actually have anything there, but what is the time on that?
10:36.
And then we have on this following page another message at 3:16. Is that correct?
Mhm.
I think she's kind of talking about how much she's selling some cards and making some money, something like that, correct?
Right.
And you immediately kind of respond within a minute to her at around 3 o'clock, correct?
Right.
But you don't do anything here, correct? Because it's just a random message, and there's no need to. Nothing's being asked of you, right?
Right.
It's just a random message.
Right.
And you just take care of it when you walk in the door. Right?
Pretty much.
You can almost hear the
Showing opposing counsel what's been marked as state proposed
trap being pulled back.
87.
I love this buildup. This is fantastic. The patience in building this whole moment up. This guy knows what's coming.
Before I approach, I'm just going to ask you one more time. You didn't delete anything off your phone on September 2nd of 2022, did you, sir?
Not that I recall.
Now I'm going to approach the station proposed 379 through 387. Okay, take a look at those.
Okay.
Okay. Sir, do those appear to be messages that we just looked at from maybe some other device that we were just looking at through your text messages or your timeline?
Yeah.
Do those appear to be fair and accurate depictions of those messages?
Except there's an additional message.
Right, there's an additional message.
Mm.
That's your wife's Apple Watch, isn't it?
It is.
Okay, and that's a fair and accurate depiction of what that watch looks like, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
And with the exception of the one message that's off, everything else seems to be a fair and accurate depiction of your communication on that day that you were just telling us about on the timeline. Isn't that right?
So it seems, yes.
Okay. At this time, we'd ask for the admission. States proposed 379 through 387.
You could approach.
What is this poor prosecutor leaving himself on close? His closing argument should just be replaying this. The look on the defense attorney's face when he was reviewing those documents and handing them over was like, good God.
Sir, you
Let the
maintained
bleeding
that on the
stop.
morning, September 2nd, 2022, you were at home, correct?
Right, except for when I went to take a walk.
You deny going over to 7216 Bronx Circle, correct?
Yes, sir.
Publishing 379. That is your wife's Apple Watch, correct?
I mean, it's got a picture of my daughter on it, so I'd have to assume that it is.
No. That's the same picture you just told us about from your text messages, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's at 10:35, correct?
Yes.
It says Friday, correct?
Yes.
It also says Rob up in the corner, correct?
Yes.
I'm now publishing 380. Please read to this jury, what does it say underneath that photograph?
It says, where are you?
Where are you? You told us you were at home.
I did not. I said, actually, when I got the messages, I was still on my walk.
Sir, is it your testimony that you were at home on the day in that morning?
Not the entire morning, no. And
Okay.
I said that to you,
And let
sir.
me ask you this question. That message isn't on your phone, is it?
It isn't. I mean, if it was sent, it should have been, but
Sir? Yes or no? That message isn't on your phone.
why it isn't, I wouldn't know because
I didn't ask you why.
it's not on my wife's phone either.
Sir, I didn't ask you why. I asked you a yes or no question. That message is not on your phone, correct?
From what you showed me, it is not.
And you were in possession of your phone on that day, correct?
On that day, yes.
And you, as the owner of the phone, have the ability to save messages and delete messages, correct?
Yes.
Because the person who holds the phone controls the information, correct?
At that moment, yes.
Right. And she's asking, where are you? Right?
Yes.
At that same time, at 10:30 in the morning, we've seen video surveillance of a car that you say looks just like mine driving in Mr. Gehrman's neighborhood, correct?
That is correct.
These are just awful coincidences.
Sir, if you left your phone at home, you wouldn't have been able to respond to that message, correct? If you were not next to it, correct?
I think that's speculative, but
If you left your house and left your phone at home on the morning of September 2nd, and your wife's texting you, where are you? You wouldn't have been able to respond to that, correct?
but I did not.
I didn't ask you that. If you were not in your house on September 2nd in the morning, and your wife sent you a message with a phone you had left at home, it would have been impossible for you to answer that question, correct?
Yeah.
He can answer.
I'll ask you again.
Again, that would have been if in fact that was the case, if in fact I left my phone at home, then sure, yes.
I have no further questions for this witness.
Wowie.
Okay, so at this time, we need to end early today, so we're gonna, conclude the
Oh
meeting.
my
Can I get
Lord.
this posted so we'll talk about tomorrow's start time?
I don't even know where to begin. That was just I mean, first off, it's a master class in doing a cross-examination. I mean, I just, you know, it's one thing to plan out your cross-examination. It's another thing to create a story arc with it. And that's exactly what he did. That was just remarkable to, you want to end on a high note, and the way that he built that up. We're talking about one deleted text, and the way that he just slowly reeled that in, savoring every single possible moment, setting him up, playing into his ego, all to lay the trap for that one final moment of catching him in that lie, catching him in that destruction of evidence and destroying that text message. Is that the smoking gun in this entire thing? No, but it is an excellent way to end this whole thing when it comes to a man who's protesting his innocence and nothing to hide whatsoever, that this is what you chose to delete. And ironically, we find it on your wife's phone is what actually, hangs you in that moment. I gotta thank you guys. You guys are all big troopers for sticking with this whole thing. Bob, thank you so much for jumping on. I really appreciate that. Dumpster fire rolling downhill on through hills headed toward straight edge cliff. Yeah, it absolutely was. I mean, again, I keep on coming back to how, the facts are the facts, right? And it's kind of like, what are you going to do when the facts are this bad? And it's hard to imagine anybody performing well under these circumstances, but this man is a unique specimen in that he couldn't even get through the simplest of questions without continuing to make it worse for himself. Stephanie says, I like his cross, could have been 5 minutes. You're right. Less than 5 minutes and equally effective, if not more. I'm surprised it went on this long. That was a choice that he made, and the choice that he made, I think he made that for reasons far beyond proving his own case. I think that was about not allowing this person to get away with that. He's not going to allow him to get away with murder, but on top of that, he's not going to allow him to get up and spew this nonsense to these jurors without taking the opportunity to impale him on every single lie that he told. And he didn't leave anything. He didn't leave any scraps on the table. I mean, he went after him on absolutely everything. If you guys, thank you, Pammy. Love you guys too. I'm so just blown away with everybody who stuck through this whole thing. That was long. We're close to 3.5 hours of going through that, and it got fascinating, but it also got grueling. So thank you guys so much for sticking along. Afton, thank you so much for being a new member. Laura, thank you so much for the kind words. It was remarkable. I mean, and here's the thing too. If all the cross-examinations and all the testimonies that you're going to watch by a defendant, this is probably towards the top of your list of something that you want to see, because it just was a perfect storm of things that you just don't see in an entire career. But Bob's still on here. I encourage him to jump in on this too, that like, how often do you see a person testify in the narrative like this? How often do you come across a person with this kind of an ego and then how often do you see a prosecutor who's just able to do such a remarkable job in chopping him apart? It really was incredible. He talked about it. I think he's going to come back on redirect. We saw him taking a lot of very furious notes on what he plans his redirect doing. Yeah, there's Bob saying, I've never seen it. Me neither. I've been doing this a long time on both sides and never seen this type of a thing. So I think it was worth watching just for that alone. You could go your entire career and never see something this remarkable as far as what a defendant decided to do. But I mean, the case is over as far as I'm concerned. I saw a lot of people in the comments kind of trying to guess how long they're going to take to deliberate on this thing. I will say another thing. I've been doing this long enough that juries will surprise you on how long or how little time they will take to decide something. But, you saw the closing arguments already. I mean, what are they going to, what is his attorney going to get up and say that he can add to or contradict what his client has already said? And the prosecution took their entire time laying out their entire theory of the case. I mean, he did both his closing and rebuttal all through that cross-examination. Really, really was remarkable. He's writing no all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy repeatedly, because he really is, he's absolutely bonkers. I mean, he through all of that didn't, by the way, cried, didn't shed a tear, sat through that whole thing and didn't sweat a drop. So he's just an absolute robot of a human being to have sat through that whole thing and then maintain this kind of, it's still this attitude of, okay, yeah, you're asking a lot of very interesting questions here, but just wait. Let me write down my little notes. Just wait till I get to explain all of this and unravel all of this nonsense when I get on redirect. I think you're right, CH. They're gonna spend a few minutes introducing themselves. They're gonna spend a few more minutes deciding whether or not they want to stick around for lunch and what they'll have to eat. And then they're going to, ask for the verdict forms. I would be blown away if they take a significant amount of time to pour all of this. But, I think they also want to send a message that they're doing their job and that they're diligent about it, and that this is not a rush to judgment just for appearance's sake for everybody who's been watching. I don't know what he could do, Jocelyn, in closing. I mean, I feel bad for this man. I respect him, what he had to do and what he had to go through. I don't at all blame him for this disaster. It's obvious the client that he's dealing with, and it's obvious that the client probably didn't even want him there. And you get up on close, and I think he's gonna already have his ticket to his timeshare in Cabo booked. And he's going to get up there and he's going to say, you heard from my client's own mouth exactly what took place, and this is why it is to be believed. He didn't cry. You're right. He didn't cry from observing crime scene photos or the loss of a life. He cried from the mess that he had to clean up because his house got tossed. Just really, really remarkable stuff. All right, guys, if you got more questions, I'll try to answer them. But, wait a minute. Before we start to close, I wanted to thank everybody who signed up. We got a bunch of new members. It warms my heart. You're all fantastic for taking the time to, help support us, and so that we can continue to put out more and more content for you guys. That's right. Check out Defense Diaries. I'm sure you all know all about it. And by the way, Bob is going to be on my other podcast, the True Crime News Sidebar, coming up here soon. So we're going to have a really great conversation. But to Miss B, Kathy W, Schwartz Becky 20, Bonnie Bailey, I Love Justice, Cat 3309, Jody Arrington for the contribution. Thank you so much. FNA 7, Laura Waldy, Bob, Defense Diaries, Stephanie Lowry, Afton, Fored, and everybody who signed up and sent contributions. Ren, Pillock, you guys are all fantastic. Thank you so much. Perry, for helping us continue to do this. I thoroughly enjoy it, and I'm glad that you guys do too. And Tisu's always quick on the draw. We're going to be having a new episode come out tomorrow. In fact, they're working on editing it as we speak, because we do not sleep around here. No one is allowed to sleep. True crime does not sleep, so neither do we. And we're going to be covering this case, talking a little bit more in depth about some things that took place throughout the week. talking about Adelson, Matthew Perry. It's a really great episode. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of the stuff that we put out, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. So please make sure to check it out. Tomorrow, the new episode comes out. And before I get off of here, let me just see if there's any other comments from everyone. It looks like everybody's saying goodnight. I miss saying goodnight to the kiddos tonight, but it was worth it to stick through this whole thing with you folks. And I'll make them breakfast in the morning. But thank you guys again. This was fun. This was long, but I hope that you all enjoyed it. And I appreciate you being here with me through all of it. So have a good night, everybody. Take care.